do in this park system. It's what makes it great is our volunteers. And I know these are just numbers when you hear them, but they're just amazing. And so thank you to our coaches and to all the volunteers, amazing work that they do every day in this park system. We're so grateful. So thank you. Athletics, aquatics, ice arenas, youth sports. Youth basketball games began January 4th at 11 sites across the city, and we have 167 teams participating. And again, the volunteers that are coaching these teams every day is really incredible. So 167 teams participating. Adult sports. We hosted a women's broomball kickoff party on December 27th at Bryn Mawr to recruit women into broomball teams. Women and men came out to try the sport and had equipment was available to use. So get out there and join this wonderful women's broomball kickoff party. It's pretty, or the teams, it's pretty fun. So thank you for that information. The Broomball League began play at most sites on January 5th, and we have 231 teams in the league. Another incredible statistic. That's wonderful. Ice arenas. The City of Lakes Hockey Association donated $500 towards a new game clock at the Northeast Ice Arena. So thank you for that donation. It's greatly appreciated. Youth development. The boys overnight took place on January 4th, 2020 at Fallwell Park. NPRB staff from IT and youth development talked with the boys about their journey to get to where they are in their career, sharing the barriers they overcame and the path they took to succeed. The boys also participate in small group discussions on social media, careers, and current issues. Street Reach staff assisted with group discussions and supervision. There were 29 boys who participated in the overnight event. And with that, I think that's everything. So thank you, President Cogill and Commissioners.
Thank you, Superintendent Bangora. We'll move on. We have a couple of time-certain items coming up, but we will move on to our consent business. Do I have a resolution on item 9.1 or a motion on item 9.1? All right, Commissioner Vitaw has, or Vice President Vitaw has moved resolution 2020-100. All those in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Cogill?
Yes.
Sorry, or President Cogill,
Yes.
you'll need a second on that.
Okay.
Second.
Have a second from Commissioner Meyer. All those in favor of resolution 2020-100, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, so moved. Moving into reports of standing committees, the Legislative and Intergovernmental Committee, Commissioner Forney.
Oh, that's me.
Oh, sorry, my fault. Commissioner.
On behalf
Vice
of the
President Vitaw.
On behalf of the Legislative and Intergovernmental Committee, I would like to move Resolution 2019-421, a resolution approving one-year contracts effective January 1st, 2020 with Rice, Michaels, and Walter, LLP, in the amount not to exceed $85,000, and Tom Workman in the amount not to exceed $30,000 for lobbyist services.
The resolution has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, so moved. Moving into the Standards and Conduct Committee. AK is not here. I'm failing to recall who the...
Brad is second.
Brad's the vice chair.
So I will move resolution 2019-423, a resolution amending the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board rules of the board.
The resolution has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of resolution 2019-423, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
No.
I'll request a roll call.
Commissioner Musich?
No.
Commissioner Meyer?
Aye.
Commissioner French?
Aye.
Commissioner Forney?
No.
Vice President Vitaw?
No.
President Cogill?
Aye.
You have 3 ayes, 3 nays, and 3 absent.
All right, that resolution does not pass.
On behalf of the Planning Committee, I move Resolution 2019-424. It's a resolution approving the 2019 Above the Falls Regional Park Master Plan.
The resolution has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of Resolution 2019-424, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? The resolution passes.
On behalf of the Admin Committee, I would like to move Resolution 2019-425, a resolution approving an agreement with ICM 7 Mill Place LP ICM to allow the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board to capture rainwater for reuse in the Waterworks project from the Barrel House and Engine House properties located at 111 3rd Avenue South and 333 1st Street South, Minneapolis.
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? I just quickly want to say that I'm so thrilled to see that this agreement has been worked out, and great next step in this exciting project at the Waterworks site. With that, all those in favor of Resolution 2019-425, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Of those opposed, abstentions, so moved.
I'll move Resolution 2019-427, first reading of resolution amending Chapter 17 to the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board Code of Ordinances, criteria-based system of capital and rehabilitation neighborhood park project scheduling in conjunction with Chapter 16 through 20-year, is that right? No, neighborhood park plan. Sorry.
The resolution has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of Resolution 20?
President Kogan,
Yes.
sorry.
Yes,
We
Secretary.
might need a reading from Council Rice on this, but it's my understanding that when it's at the first reading, you don't actually take a vote on it. It wouldn't be until it goes to the second
Okay.
reading.
That's correct.
Right. Thank you, Secretary Ringgold. Moving right along.
Okay, to Resolution 2019-428, resolution approving change order number 3 with Standard Contracting, Inc., contract COM-1014 for shoreline enhancements and stormwater outfall repairs at Lake Nokomis Regional Park in the amount of $59,486.33 for a new contract total of $525,112.94, and approving the allocation of $5,802.46 from MPRB Regional Park Operations and Maintenance Funds to cover costs for the rehabilitation of MPRB storm sewer infrastructure.
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of Resolution 2019-428, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That carries.
I'll move Resolution 2019-429, resolution accepting capital improvement grant award amendment number 1 from the Mississippi Watershed Management Organization, extending the grant deadline for the design and construction of innovative stormwater management practices, as well as part of the Waterworks mezzanine phase construction.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of Resolution 2019-429, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? That carries. Moving into unfinished business, we have a resolution 2020-102. If I could get a motion on that.
I'll move Resolution 2020-102, a resolution authorizing the execution of a second amendment to the purchase agreement with St. Anthony Real Estate Company, Patel, related to the acquisition of 30 31st Avenue North, 50 31st Avenue North, and 3101 Pacific Street in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Thank you. The resolution has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Resolution has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? All those in favor of Resolution 2020-102, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, that carries. At this time, I'd like a motion to, yes, Commissioner Forney.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to move from the Admin and Finance Committee, Resolution 2019-426, to the full board this evening.
Okay. Commissioner Forney has made a motion. Commissioner Musich, you have a question?
I just had a clarifying question. It looks like Secretary Ringgold might be trying to answer my question, so.
Secretary Ringgold.
President Kogel, I think this might be a moment for Council Rice to help. So there are two items that staff have requested would move from committee to full board tonight, and we didn't include them in the agenda at the top of the meeting. So I think what happens next is if the board wants to consider them as a full board, you will have to suspend your rules, you'll have to add them to the agenda, and it's probably two separate actions. Perhaps Council Rice can fill that in more detail.
Mr. Chair, Secretary Ringgold is correct. It'd be a motion to suspend the rules, and then if you get a two-thirds vote to suspend the rules, then you could move to add something to the agenda.
Thank you, Council Rice. So the motion is on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of suspending the rules to
Just suspend the rule, that's it.
suspending the rules, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That carries. At this time, I would,
Madam, she has to make a motion to add it to the agenda.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
there are two.
That's the second one you're referring to.
Commissioner Forney.
So I move to include on the agenda Resolution 2019, to amend the agenda, the Resolution 2019-426. Am I correct? And also from Admin and Finance, Resolution 2020-104.
So that's, just to clarify, that's 2019-426 and 2020-104.
Correct.
All right, there has been a motion to...
Which items are being moved forward to the board?
426, so the first two items on the
First two
Admin and
items, okay.
Finance. The first two resolutions.
All right, thank you.
Has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carries. All right.
Now we're back to our agenda.
At this time, we have about 10 minutes. I will ask that we have a motion to recess, and we'll just recess the board and move to the Recreation Committee. Chair French.
8/5/22, I'd like to call to order Recreation Committee. Secretary, please take the roll.
Commissioner Musich,
Present.
Vice President Vita,
Present.
Chair French,
Here,
you have a quorum.
I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. We have approval of the minutes from Wednesday, November 6, 2019. I'll entertain a
So
motion.
moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. So we have a study report tonight. I think Heidi Pope will be the person giving us our study report tonight. Youth Development Department, Rec Plus School Age Care. So we're going to learn a little bit more about our child care program.
And it looks like it's not Heidi.
How are you, Assistant?
Good evening, Commissioners. As a matter of fact, we're actually going to have Margaret Yeager present tonight. So I think we can just kind of jump in and she will catch you up on kind of what's been happening in the world of fee-based programs with Rec Plus.
awesome. We like somebody can step into the breach.
There it is.
Good evening, President and Commissioners. Margaret Yeager, Manager of Child Development. I'm here to give you an update on the Rec Plus School-Age Child Care Program. We're going to kind of go through just the basics of the Rec Plus, starting with just a basic definition. Rec Plus operates before and after school. It is for kindergarten through 6th grade. We have different start times and ending times depending on when schools start and when they end. So some of our sites have morning care, some of our sites don't have morning care based on the busing zones of the Minneapolis public schools and charter schools and other schools in the area. In the summer and on school release days, we operate for 11 hours a day from 7 a.m. until 6 p.m. That is at 9 of our sites citywide, so not all sites have school release days. It's based on enrollment, and every part of the city has release days, so they cluster together from other sites. For example, if Fuller Park doesn't have release days, those kids can go to Lyndhurst or Armitage, and their child care worker travels with them to that site. Release days are also open to the public, so if you're not in our regular school year program and you want to attend, like over winter break or on President's Day, you can sign up as a non-Rec Plus child for that day for care as long as you register in advance. This is just all the different sites in the different areas of the city. So we have 4 sites northeast. We have 1 site north with another one opening this fall. We have 3 sites in upper south Minneapolis. We have 5 sites in lower south, and we have 5 sites in southwest Minneapolis. I'm going to talk a little bit about enrollment versus daily attendance. A lot of times we get a lot of confusion about, like, if a site like Keewaydin has 66 kids in the morning, it doesn't mean that 66 kids are coming on a daily basis. We have a lot of families that come part-time. So when you see a number like 66, they might really only have 38 coming every day, but it's 66 families enrolled. So when you see enrollment numbers, that's not a daily total. So we like to point that out. Some of our sites, like we said, have AM, they have PM, they have summer enrollment. This is just kind of a chart to give you a breakdown of what's in your area. We select sites based on a lot of things. We look at the busing of the schools, we look at waiting lists at our own sites, at the school board's program, at the YMCA's, at different programs. We conduct monthly audits of what's going on in the city. We have discussions with other agencies like Anoka, Hennepin County, Minneapolis Kids, just kind of talking about the different things with staffing and the trends going on in childcare. We do a lot of marketing for Rec Plus so that families know that we're available. And then we look at opening new sites when we have a really high demand. If we have a part of the city that's had a pretty strong waiting list and there's no other sites of Rec Plus that they can go to, we do look at opening new sites. So a couple years ago, we opened up Corcoran because we had over 100 kids on a waiting list at Hiawatha School Park. So that's just an example of when we look at what's going on in the city. Next is our budget, our projected revenue and expenses. It's pretty large program. We have 9 certified full-time child care workers. We have 9 certified part-time child care workers. We have 70 provisional part-time staff. Daily expenses are activities, supplies, admissions. And then we like to look at equipment for the rec centers. So we look at equipment a little bit different, which is our bigger items, our air conditioning units, our cubbies, our furniture, our window shades for making the buildings without air cooler for the kids. This just kind of gives you a breakdown of the time frames. We have 2 tiers for AM and 2 tiers for PM. Once again, it's based on the school start and end times, and there is different fees for those. Those are based on when the school is let out, not when the buses are coming and going. The release days, once again, we have 2 different fee assistance programs. We have the Minneapolis Park Board's fee assistance program, which is ran through our recreation department. And then we also have contracts with county assistants, like Hennepin County, Dakota County. So we set up contracts with the county, and that's when we get money subsidized from the county. Parents sometimes have a copay, sometimes they don't. This is our staffing again, our certified child care workers, and our provisional staff. We also have about 10 inclusion facilitators. So we have kids with disabilities in our program. Sometimes they require a one-on-one inclusion facilitator. Sometimes they just require a reduced ratio, where we'll take extra part-time staff and put them in the program.
I'm going to stop you
Yep.
right there, and I'm going to recess the rec committee because we have open time that will start.
Okay.
We'll come back to you.
Thank you, Chair French. And thank you, Ms. Yeager. We'll hear from you again very soon. The time being 5:30, we have now open time, which is our opportunity to hear from you. Open time is our opportunity to hear from you about any issues that are not closed for the public for personnel or litigation matters. All those wishing to speak at open time can call in before 3 p.m. the day of the meeting to be placed on the agenda, or can sign up at the board meeting prior to the start of open time. Open time for public input usually should not exceed 15 minutes, but we have a lot of folks signed up, and we will hear from all of you, and I will allocate 90 seconds per speaker. So please do stay within that time period. We want everybody to have an equal opportunity to speak to us. Finally, open time is, again, our opportunity to hear from you. That means we're not here to debate you. Only clarifying questions would be allowed. And again, to reiterate, items that are not allowed to be discussed are pending litigation and personnel issues. And with that, I have many sheets of paper here, and the first speaker that I have tonight is Kyle Samajima. Is Kyle here?
Yep, she's here.
Fantastic. If you could state your name and, if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
Thank you, Park Board Commissioners. My name is Kyle Samajima. I live at 611 West 34th Street in Minneapolis. And I am a Minneapolis resident, of course, and the Executive Director of Minneapolis Climate Action, which is a nonprofit focused on local solutions to our climate crisis right here in our city, based in environmental justice. And we know stories roll in every day with the devastating impacts of climate change, species loss, and impacts of pollution on our bodies and to our environment, with the inherent loss of billions of dollars and untold suffering of humans and our non-human relatives. And as we are all well aware, these impacts hit marginalized, poor, and communities of color at a disproportionate rate. This is not hyperbole, even though it's painful to hear. We're at a tipping point, and I believe we have the solutions at hand to solve our systemic problems, but using pesticides in our parks is treating a symptom and not the cause of our issues. Using pesticides diminishes soil health and leaves soil more vulnerable to invasive species and damage and pests, not to mention the impacts from the production and application of these pesticides and damage they do to soil, humans, and water and wildlife. I urge, as the Commissioner's responsibility, it is to end the use of pesticides. I urge you to transition to organic systems, set a transition timeline, partner with Be Safe Minneapolis, and please pass this resolution as soon as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Should I give this to someone? You can give it to Dawn, who's right. She's raising her hand there. Next we have Al Flowers. Is Al here? Mr. Flowers, if you come to the mic and state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair Calgo. Am I saying it right?
But you're close enough.
No, I want to get you right now.
Thank you.
I want to get you right. First, I just wanted to come in. I wanted to stop through here and just say, first I want to thank former Chair Brad Bourne and AK host Hassan for their service, and I wish they was here when I'm speaking. I know Carol Stevenson is a little sick right now, but I want to thank them for their service. and also to come here because I missed the swearing in. And I would like to have been here when y'all got sworn in, but we was at another meeting with the chief. So I want to congratulate you, the chair and the vice chair. Looking forward to a great year of success, and I'm thankful that Chairman Prince is still over on recreation, because that's a big deal for our community. And that's what I came to say today. I want to congratulate y'all, and I know it's going to be a great year. And just AK and Brad, this is about the people. So you should be sitting up here today on this day. So I'm going to say it publicly. You should be here, but I'm congratulating them on what they did and congratulating y'all. I know what's going to be a great year with Superintendent Bangor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Flowers. Next we have Catherine Ringham. Is Catherine here? Hello, Catherine. If you state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record.
There's 3 of us signed up that are all going to be together.
Okay.
Good evening, Superintendent, Commissioners, and Council. My name is Mary Ann Carolyn, 4234 DuPont Avenue South.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Ringham at 4409 DuPont Avenue South in the East Harriet neighborhood.
And Susie Kraus, 4208 Colfax Avenue South.
I'm here to speak for myself and for my neighbors near Lake Harriet to ask for your leadership in establishing a clear timeline for a transition to organic management of our parklands. As our elected leaders, you've assumed responsibility for the stewardship of parklands as well as for the safety of employees, park users, and Minneapolis citizens, and for that we thank you. It's wonderful that many pieces are already in place to confidently establish a timeline for a transition away from chemical use. You have an established pesticide advisory committee who will work hard to guide the transition. You have pilot projects in place already, including one at Fort Snelling Golf Course. You have access to knowledgeable and successful consultants from around the country, including Chip Osborne, who was recently here. You have constituents who want a timeline and are willing to support you. You have a supportive climate in Minneapolis, since both the public schools and the city of Minneapolis are transitioning away from pesticide use. You're fortunate to have no pending lawsuits against you on this matter, and you are the #1 park board in the country and are in a great position to provide leadership. It's an exciting time. We thank you for the work you've done. We thank you in advance for a clear transition timeline to continue moving forward. And this is a copy of the resolution that we hope you support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carlson. Next up, we have Mr. Sean Conity. Sean, if you'd approach the podium and state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
Hello, Sean Conity, 4053 23rd Avenue South and in the Standish neighborhood. And thank you for this opportunity. I wanted to give the perspective coming from stewardship of Lake Hiawatha. And so first I wanted to note that since the golf course has reduced their use of pesticides, I think that's a great improvement. However, since there has been historic and extensive use of all manner of pesticides at Hiawatha Golf Course, I think it is one of the potential reasons why there are no frogs that live at Hiawatha Golf Course. I'd also like to note that since the park board has stopped treating the lawns at Hiawatha Park, we've seen increase in pollinators, and it's good to see all the clover and stuff being allowed to be there, and I hope for more of that in the future. I don't know if you guys are aware of the Minnesota Department of Agriculture's testing of Minnehaha Creek has found repeatedly high spikes of triclopyr that have been tested going back to 2012. And so they were alarming levels. the pesticide triclopyr, which the park board does use in treating invasives, and so that's problematic. And it is possible that it could be coming from park usage along the creek and waterways. So hopefully, I would like you to accept this resolution. And
Thank you, Mr. Conity, and you can give that to Ms. Summers there. Next, we have Ryan Siebold. Ryan, if you would come forward and state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
Yeah. Thank you, President Kogel, and hello, Superintendent and Commissioners. Thinking about this big issue, I went to a very well-known author, Rachel Carson. She wrote Silent Spring. I hope you have all read that book. I wanted to read a couple quotes. I read this book, actually reread it this summer, and just pulled a few quotes that I really liked and thought was prevalent and pertaining to the issue of pesticides in our parks. So here I go. Like the resource it seeks to protect, wildlife conservation must be dynamic, changing as conditions change, seeking always to become more effective. And these sprays, dust, and aerosols are now applied almost universally to farms, gardens, forests, homes, non-selective chemicals that have the power to kill every insect, the good and the bad, to still the song of birds and the leaping of fish in the streams, to coat the leaves with a deadly film and to linger on in soil. All this, though the intended target may be only a few weeds or insects. Can anyone believe it is possible to lay down such a barrage of poisons on the surface of the earth without making it unfit for all life? They should be called insecticides. They should be called biocides. So I just wanted to point out that point about effectiveness. I think we can look at the effectiveness of soils, healthy soils, and keeping the diversity of animals and species in our parks, and that would be more effective than the opposite, which is using biocides in our parks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Siebold. Next up, we have Janice Kepner. Janice, if you'd come forward and state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
Okay, I guess I should move this down. My name is Janice Gepner, 1905 James Avenue South, and I'm just here to thank you for reappointing me to the Bicycle Advisory Committee. I've served on the BAC as a Park Board citizen rep since 2011, and I've also been the secretary of the committee during that time. I'm one of only 2 older women on the committee, and I've been a bicyclist my whole life, and I can say, while I no longer commute by bike in year round, weather permitting, I do enjoy using my bike for transportation. And I think, we heard about climate change. Certainly, when distances are short and the weather is nice, bicycling is a great form of transportation. So anyway, I deeply value my service on the BAC. It's one of the most important things that I do in my retirement. It gives me a chance to use my skills to contribute to the city and the park board and to bicycling, and I just wanted to thank you again for the reappointment. And congratulations to President Kogel and Vita.
Thank you, Ms. Gepner. We have time for one more speaker before we have a time-certain public hearing at 5:45. Our next speaker is Lee Samuels. Lee, if you would come forward and state your name, and if you're comfortable, your address for the record.
Yes, Lee Samuelson, District 5, Ward 12, and President Kogel, members of the commission. I definitely wanted to comment on the resolution to transition to organic pesticide-free parks, and specifically to set a timeline for that purpose and to get it on the agenda for the next meeting. And also want to encourage partnering with Be Safe Minneapolis and their efforts on getting rid of the state preemption. I do have a copy of the resolution that I could submit as part of the record, but where I see the the first three whereas clauses on it, I just want to say that this is your chance to shine as far as addressing the climate emergency which the city has declared, because phasing out pesticides means soil health, and soil health means potential to sequester carbon, where Minneapolis could set an inspiring precedent for other cities to follow, and also the priority of protecting people's health, where, as many of you know, I have been treated for a curable form of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I want to know that the parks are a place that I can be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. If you have any items, you can give them to the secretary, or to Ms. Summers, or to the secretary. All right, thank you. The time being 5:45. We do have a time certain public hearing. This is a public hearing for an amendment to Chapter 17 of the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board Code of Ordinances, criteria-based system for capital and rehabilitation neighborhood park project scheduling, in conjunction with Chapter 16-20, the 16 to 20 year neighborhood park plan, or the 20-year neighborhood park plan in Chapter 16. And we do not have anybody signed up. Is there anybody here to speak for the public hearing? Is there anybody here to speak? Is there anybody here to speak? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing, and we can return to open time. Our next speaker is Ruth Lind. Is Ruth here? Ruth, if you would state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
I'm Ruth Lind, address 436 Newton Avenue South. I live only a block from a Minneapolis park, so fortunately, my husband and I have been able to walk our dog there pretty much every day. Unfortunately, our last two beloved pets have died early due to cancer. Now, I know that is only anecdotal, doesn't prove anything. So I would ask you to please consider the following facts. Recent studies document a massive decline in North American bird populations in the last few decades. From an article in National Geographic magazine, insect apocalypse in U.S. driven by 50% increase in toxic pesticides. And within that article, current loss of biodiversity is being called the sixth extinction. We really don't have time to dilly-dally and dither about the damage that's happening to our ecosystem. Surely, another healthy choice that we could make, following the fact that we don't allow tobacco in our parks, an easy, healthy choice would be to prohibit the use of poisons. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lind. Next, we have Patrick Kerrigan. Patrick is here. And if you come forward and state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
Great. Hello, Park Board members. Thanks for hearing my testimony. I'm Pat Kerrigan. 1300 Powderhorn Terrace, number 21 is my address. So I'm Pat Kerrigan. Hey, Kay, how are you? With the Organic Consumers Association. We have an estimated 5,000 members in Minneapolis. I'm on the Pesticide Advisory Committee. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Organic Parks Resolution. We were in this room this past November, and we heard from three of the foremost national experts on transitioning from pesticides to organic, natural, and regenerative practices. Those being Russ Henry, Chip Osborne, and Jay Feldman. They let us know about examples happening across the country. Now's the time to transition. Walking in, seeing those statues of the kids playing, I was thinking, well, what if these kids playing in the parks have immune or are susceptible to toxins. As Kyle, our first speaker, said, soil health. We need to be improving soil health as one of the very best ways of sequestering carbon, along with delivering all sorts of other biodiversity and ecological benefits. And Roundup herbicides are killing soil health. We partnered with the pesticide applicators. Why not partner with the citizens of Minneapolis that want to transition to organic and healthy parks? Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Kerrigan. Our next speaker is Mark Rosenberg. Mark, if you're here. Mark, if you could state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
Mark Rosenberg, 3104 West Lake Street. I'm a member of the Minnehaha Creek Watershed Citizen Advisory Committee. Regarding pesticide reform in Minneapolis parks, a total ban and conversion from toxic chemicals to organic methods and IPM, integrated pest management, is desperately needed and long past due. It's like choosing to stop smoking cigarettes. You can go from 2 packs a day to 1 pack a day. Your risk of developing lung cancer or emphysema has likely been delayed by a few years. A half-hearted gesture at this time is a publicity stunt. State law also needs to be changed. The noxious weed law conveys a mandate of eradication instead of controlled management, compelling the use of the most powerful herbicides in the city's arsenal, or the contracting with a weed control specialist offering the application of synthetic herbicides such as Roundup as the method of choice. There is a moral imperative to make this change. Use of pesticides creates a tax burden and a strain on our healthcare system. Clearly, pesticide reform is a quality of life issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. Our next speaker is Kate Noja. Kate, if you are here, I see you there. If you could please state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
My name is Kate Noy. My address is 1011 94th Avenue Northwest in Coon Rapids. And I did a cheat sheet here, so I have to read mine because I was nervous. But I'm here because I care about transitioning our parks to organic, because it's not only a risk to the pollinators, water, and wildlife, but also to our public health and workers' rights for a safe work environment. 2 of my daughters have been offered a full-time position this summer with Parks and Rec to mow, fertilize, and weed city properties. I'm starting to doubt the safety of that job and concerned about the long-term repercussions to their health. I do not want them ingesting poison all summer. They both have a compromised immune system due to chronic asthma, and the thought of letting them be willingly exposed to toxic air due to pesticides is out of this world. I demand parks and protected public lands to improve water quality, the air we breathe, protect groundwater, and produce habitat for wildlife by utilizing organic products. I demand the parks and protected lands be healthy in order for my family and I to connect with nature and the outdoors. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Noja. Our next speaker is Joe Hessla. Joe, you could please state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the public record, and you have 90 seconds.
My name is Joe Hessla. I live at 3519 23rd Avenue South, Minneapolis. I'm here to speak against or speak for the ban of pesticides in the parks. Nearly 1/3 of birds have gone extinct or nearly extinct worldwide. Nearly 1/3 of all insect species are now extinct or nearly extinct. And 1/3 of our food comes from pollinated crops. So, we need an organic pest management. We have a world saturated with countries and practices of using pesticides. What we don't have enough of is people saying no. And I believe that it's pretty common that common knowledge that we have about 12 years left to save us from the crash of the environment, and we need bold steps wherever we can, everywhere. And it would be great if you took a bold step here and banned pesticides. And I think we need to do it in the whole state, really the whole country. It's an emergency, and you have a chance to do something important. And we will be back when this vote comes up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hessler. Next up, and I apologize if I mispronounced his name, is this Mina Learwood? I did. Oh, wow. Good first guess. Okay, if you would mind if you would come forward and state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the public record, and you have 90 seconds.
Thank you. My name is Mina Learwood. I work at Emerson Spanish Immersion School. I'm a Minneapolis school teacher. I'm also a member of Extinction Rebellion. I'm also an artist and an activist with Art Shanty Project, so come on out to Lake Harriet, B'day Umna, later this month and see the beautiful art shanties, including the pollinator shanty, where we're doing education on how important pollinators are to our future, to our children's future, to our food systems. And so here I am advocating for the pollinators. There's definitely a lot of creatures in this world and beings, including children, that don't have a seat at the table. They're not able to advocate for themselves. And I really believe in my work with children and my work with plants and animals that we need to be more considerate of others because we're part of a circle of life. And I am here to support the resolution to have an organic Minneapolis park system. I'm very, very proud of our park system, and I want to thank you all for your service. We have one of the greatest park systems in the United States, and I really believe we can lead on this organic park proposal. So please, please pass it. And we can be an example to other states and other cities. And just as other cities are an example to us in this fight for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lyrewood. Our next speaker is Bonnie Beckel. Bonnie, if you could state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
Hello, my name is Bonnie Beckel. My address is 3519 23rd Avenue South. I want to add my voice to people who are asking that the Minneapolis Park Board take charge of creating a positive future for all of the pollinators in our urban area. I am deeply concerned about the toxic world that we've created that leaves our loved ones suffering and dying from cancers. That bottom line is we need to clean up how we're interacting with our natural world. So thank you for the work you do.
Thank you, Ms. Beckel. We do have another time-certain item at 6 p.m., the Fall Youth Sportsmanship Award presentation. I will take, I think, two more speakers here before we go into that. Our next speaker is Pete Sasadi. Pete, if you'd come forward and state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
Yeah, my name's Pete Sajati. I'm a resident of Fridley, Minnesota, 6180 Cary Lane. And I was told by a friend that this was occurring today, that to reach out to have this transition between pesticide and chemical usage at our parks. And I was really encouraged at this opportunity, and I see the momentum nationwide with many campuses, with many parks nationwide that are also moving away from using these chemicals and these dangerous substances at our parks. And I think from my research and my opinion, this is the right thing to do. There are many wonderful things happening in Minnesota, but to not take a stand on this issue would be the wrong move. So I'm here to just to join with the voice that you're hearing from the others here, that we are asking you guys to make the right decision and join the movement to be better stewards of this land, and then we will see rewards from that And that's just, I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Sajati. Our next speaker is Constance Pepin. Constance, if you would come forward and state your name, and if you're comfortable, your address for the record.
Hi,
and 90 seconds.
Constance Pepin. I'm here on behalf of myself and also Audubon Chapter Minneapolis, Friends of Roberts Bird Sanctuary, and Friends of Minneapolis Wildlife. I join the voices of others here today asking you to please begin now to transition to a pesticide-free Minneapolis park system. Other people before me have mentioned that researchers and scientists are describing the declines in wildlife as staggering and catastrophic. The decline in insects has been called an apocalypse. There are now 3 billion fewer birds in North America than we had just 50 years ago. To respond to this crisis, we must strengthen protections for wildlife, and a big part of that is to stop using pesticides. To continue to use pesticides is a form of climate change denial. As climate change adds yet another threat to wildlife on top of habitat loss, humans cannot continue business as usual, because business as usual contributes to the further decline of ecological function in our environment. It's not true that state laws require the use of pesticides. Neither the DNR or the Department of Agriculture require you to use pesticides to eradicate noxious weeds. Methods such as burning, mowing, hand pulling, digging, and other forms of physical removal are allowed. We're already in the third decade of the 21st century. Common landscaping practices from the 20th century must finally be abandoned for environmentally friendly practices that do not harm people and wildlife. I'd like to ask you to please admit that we need to make this change. It's your responsibility. I leave with you this resolution, and I ask also that you partner with Be Safe Minneapolis to help make this transition now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pepin. The time being 6 p.m., we have the 2019 Fall Youth Sportsmanship Award presentation. Very excited for this, and Mimi Kolb is here to take us away with that.
Thank you. Let's try. Oh. All right. Thank you.
You're adding somebody? Yes. It's supposed to be at 5:30.
No, but they can speak if they
I'll just ask if somebody else is missing.
President Cogill.
Yes.
Thank you, President Cogill. We're very excited to be here tonight for a little bit to honor our Fall Sportsmanship Sports Award recipients. I'd like to start by introducing the athletic staff. Bridget Lindemann, Kent Breivik, Ahmed Abdiwad, and Tim Great is kind of hiding. I also ask any full or part-time staff, thank you for that, full or part-time staff to get out of the hiding spots and wave. We cannot do our work without the support of the managers and the park directors and their staff, as well as coaches, parents, and everyone else, but they really are the boots on the ground, and we always want to acknowledge and appreciate their efforts in getting kids recruited onto teams and coaches, and thank you. Superintendent would like all staff to stand up or stand out here. They're hiding over here, too. Thank you. Just a little bit of logistics. A
First, I'm Mimi Call, Director of Athletics, Aquatics, and Ice Arenas, for those who have not met me. We will bring up the coach of each team. Tonight we're honoring football, both tackle and flag, and we're honoring volleyball and soccer. So we'll have the coach come up. They get a lot of hardware, if Bridget would help me. There's a traveling trophy that goes to each park for a year. We have a lot of fun getting these back, and we won't point out that the girls is missing an arm, but we've got one on order. So they take a little bit of roughhousing out in the parks, but they've got, since 2005, they've got plaques on them, so it's kind of neat. There's a lot of history of every park or organization that has won. The coach gets a picture plaque to keep, and we take a picture at the end of the meeting with you, and that's what we give them. And then the park gets a picture plaque as well that they can hang at their park for perpetuity. So at the end of our presentation, we will take a little break real quick and take some pictures. Thank you. We want to talk about the criteria for this special award. For the team, it's positive attitude, commitment, dedication, overcoming adversity, and persistence. For the coach, being a positive role model, loyal to the program, strong work ethic, emphasizes teamwork, has passion for what they're doing, and engages the players and parents to have fun. We're going to begin with our tackle football. This past season, we had 18 teams. We had 95 coaches. 19 of those coaches were brand new to tackle football and went through training and learning, I'm sure, on the fly. 43 of those coaches have coached for 3 seasons or more. We're starting to collect data on all the coaches and their history, and so we've done that the last 3 years, so that's why we're starting with 3. Some of them have been here for a long, long time. And they have volunteered over 6,600 hours to our program, which we thank them for. Our recipient for the tackle football program is the 12U North Commons Bulldogs and Coach Steve Johnson. If he'd come up, please. Next is our flag football program. Unfortunately, the coach and the kids are not able to be here tonight, but we want to acknowledge them. We have just begun doing flag football. This past season, we had 21 teams. We had 39 coaches. 7 were new to coaching flag football. 14 of them have coached for us, and they donated over 2,700 hours of their time for our program. Our recipient is the 13U Keewaydin Monarchs team, accepting it on their behalf, and the coach, Stephen Frimpong, is Park Director Jotika White. Oh, no, that's Sibley. I'm sorry. Sorry. We've got some here and some not, so my mistake. But we just want to thank them, and they're not here. We will get them their hardware. Youth volleyball, 58 teams this season, 94 coaches. 40 were new to the volleyball program. 14 have coached for 4 seasons or more, and they've donated over 6,500 hours to our program. The recipient this year is the 18U Open Linden Hills team, the Swagons, coached by Scott Littman. Youth soccer. This past season, we had 128 teams, 225 coaches. 68 of those were new to coaching soccer. 65 have coached for us before. and they donated over 15,700 hours to our program. The team that receives the award for girls is 11U Stewart Fire Ants and Coach Marcelo Sanchez. Lots to carry. For the Open, so we have girls and Open, which is boys and girls. This year is 11U Open Sibley Gold, and Jotika is accepting it on behalf of Coach Joe Locke. Thank you. Sorry. We'd like to thank you for your support. Another thing that the teams get tonight is they'll get a coupon for Broadway Pizza. They match our purchase of $25, so the teams get to go over and have $50 to spend on a little pizza party. If they're not here, we try to make arrangements to do something for them at their park. So we want to thank Broadway Pizza, and we will take a brief recess and take pictures with the board if it's okay. Thank you. We made it in time for you.
Yeah.
I rushed.
Thank you so much.
Good job, guys.
I want somebody to take a photo.
Oh, and we'll send it. Yvette will get the photos sent to her too, so she'll send them to all you guys. But
You
yeah.
want on your own camera, right? Yeah. I got you. Thanks.
So what we'll do, we'll let Angela take it, and then we'll let all, you can stay right there, but then we'll let all the parents come in.
All four of us are here. There's only four of us. But we also
Got some tall girls. Yeah. Good job. Good job, North Commons.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Should we do the cheer? Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks, Coach. All right, we're next. Linden Hills is next. Get up there, Coach. You want somebody to take a picture? All right. Can we do it out? Yeah, so the board can start again. Thank you.
How you doing? Sorry, I messed up a little bit.
I don't want to get behind the line, but...
Do we have a quorum here? All right. Going to call back the regular meeting of the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. If we could take any conversations that we want to keep having out of the room so we can continue with our business and continue with the wonderful speakers that we have here tonight. We're about halfway through our list, and our next speaker is Joan Hargrave. Joan, if you would state your name and, if you're comfortable, your address for that record, and you have 90 seconds.
Hi, I'm Joan Hargrave, 5204 Washburn Avenue South. I am 2 blocks north of Minnehaha Creek. So I came today to advocate for the wildlife that I see down at the creek, particularly they're rare, but blue herons, egrets, and hawks, which are dependent on the aquatic life in the creek, which is being destroyed by the toxic runoff for pesticides that the park commissioners are responsible for using. So I'm here obviously to support the Organics Park resolution. And when I see all the children here, I want us to think about the environment, the health of the environment on which we all depend, the natural world, not just the human world, but the natural world on which we all depend, the pollinators, the bees, and the wildlife, which gives us so much pleasure. I think living near the creek has given me such an eye-opener to toxic runoff, and I think that all of you commissioners are responsible for ending the use of pesticides in our parks. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hargrove. Our next speaker is Jennifer Abbey. Jennifer, if you would state your name and, if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
Good evening and Happy New Year. I'm here in support of the Minneapolis Pesticide Advisory Committee's resolution, which creates a timeline to eliminate toxic pesticide use in our parks. I respectfully ask that Minneapolis parks cease using our tax dollars on toxins that affect me, my family, and neighbors, and disproportionately harm children, the elderly, and those with compromised health systems. In 2019, I was overjoyed when the Southwest Service Area Master Plan Community Advisory Committee recommended that my neighborhood park, which shares its land with Whittier Elementary School, become a future pilot site for an organic approach to field management. Our school's principal was thrilled as well. In 2020, I ask you to set an example for our city's youth and adopt a timeline to eliminate pesticide use. I have deep concerns about the health of our planet, our park lands, water, soil, and wildlife. The time to establish MPRB as a leader in organic management is now. Thank you for your service on this moral imperative.
Thank you, Ms. Abby. Our next speaker tonight is Rachel Augusta. Rachel? All right, Rachel, if you would state your name again and your address if you're comfortable, and you have 90 seconds.
Yep, Rachel Augusta, and I live at 2885 James Avenue South, right near Lake of the Isles. I walk my cat in a stroller around the lake every day. I actually work with animals all over the world who have cancer and other diseases, and I've learned a lot about animals. And did you know that humans are actually the only animals in the world that will knowingly walk into danger? We're like, wow, this is a really dark, scary street. I should be afraid. But the only reason I'm afraid is because I watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I kind of feel like that's what's going on with pesticides in our parks. We know that they're really bad. We know they're really dangerous. We know that we're basically walking down a dark, scary street. And we should run. But just like every bad horror movie, we need all the people in the audience screaming, "Run! Get out of there!" So let's not be a bad horror film. Let's actually get out of harm's way before it actually really does hurt us. We know that pesticides cause cancer, not just in humans, but also in animals, our beloved furry best friends. And I would love to spend the summer walking around the lake with my cat, knowing that we're both breathing in clover, not anything horrible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Augusta. Our next speaker is, I hope I get this right, we have Saint Matt Johnson?
Yeah.
All right. You would state your name and, if you're comfortable, your address for the record.
Yeah, my name's St. Matt, and I'm in District 3. Thanks for having me here. I'm here to urge the commissioners to move immediately towards a pesticide-free park system. If you don't know the name Dwayne Lee, just jot it down and read his story. He worked with Roundup for years and developed a terminal version of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He sued Monsanto. He won $289 million. I'm glad that the Minneapolis park system has gotten rid of Roundup, but it took decades to get to that point where we knew Roundup was causing cancer in humans. Look, all pesticides do one thing. They kill things. They either kill fungi, they kill plants, they kill insects, and now we know they kill humans, okay? But it took decades to figure that out about Roundup. So what I'm asking is that this group take a precautionary principle when it comes to pesticides and do what's safer, which is an organic system, and make sure that the people going out and are being in the park system, they're not being exposed to things that could potentially be deadly or could cause them sickness. And that looks like an organic system. There's really smart people here who have come up with solutions towards this. I'm just asking this commission to move as quickly as possible towards that organic system in the park, throughout the park system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Our next speaker is Grace Stewart. Grace, if you would state your name and your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
Thank you for having us here, and Happy New Year. I'm Grace Stewart in Edina, Minnesota, Hennepin County, visiting a lot of the park systems in Minneapolis, and I am an avid skier, and I go to a lot of the bird sanctuaries. I have noticed while skiing for about a decade now that I hear fewer songbirds. I see fewer birds. And I am deeply saddened, and this is my personal experience. And it's not about, I know a lot of people don't like the word climate change. It can be also just to appreciate the knowledge that already simply that we have all this diversity and that the diversity has decreased, and that it is our responsibility to appreciate the beauty of the diversity that still exists. And whether it's climate change is the reason or just the simple pesticides that hurt bees reason. Maybe all these pesticides don't make climate change. What if it has nothing to do with climate change, but it does hurt the bees, which does affect the food chain, which does bring us disease, and it's not just something in the future that might hurt us, and not that maybe there's a horror show. Some people are living a horror show already. And we have arrived to a horror show. We have already arrived to an apocalypse, and we are responsible and have knowledge, such as in France. A question I have for you is, why not use the skeletal system that the whole country of France has already begun, and they've already decided to get rid of all of the pesticides that hurt bees, and why let anything stand in its way, and why wait? We have information. We can be a leader. Let's do it. We're so intelligent. I believe in us, and let's do this.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Our next speaker is Ross Abbey. Is Ross here this evening? Ross, if you would state your name and if you're comfortable, your address. You have 90 seconds to address the board.
Good evening, Ross Abbey, 128 West 27th Street in the Whittier neighborhood. Thanks for looking at this and thinking about this and hopefully doing this. I am in support of the pesticide resolution. I moved to Minneapolis about 20 years ago and been active in boards and advisory committees, and I didn't realize up until a few years ago that we were still using pesticides and biocides in our parks. It's kind of surprising after spending years and years reading about the problem we have in the conventional agriculture system, where they use, of course, tons of chemicals, which kills the birds, kills the insects that the birds need to eat, kills the microbes in the soil that the insects eat. It's the base of the natural food chain. So to realize that we are still using these biocides here in Minneapolis, in what should be refuges and spaces of community health. It's also, I think, a great opportunity for us to transition away, to show that leadership, to improve our ecology and our public health, and to cast a vote for a natural system that's going to be a better legacy for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abbey. Our next speaker is Amy Leo Barankovich.
Almost.
Oh, please correct me and state your address for the record.
Sure, thank you. I'm Amy Leo Barankovich, 3219 18th Avenue South. There's been a lot said today, and I'm in agreement of the board moving immediately into transitioning into organic. And let me set a framework as to why. Australia is burning. The Amazon was burning. California fires were the worst in history, if I have that statistic correct. We've heard a lot of statistics, we've heard a lot of facts, and those are all important. What I ask each and every one of you to do tonight and before you vote on this is to ask yourself, if you are not currently opposing the use of pesticides, do you want to go to sleep knowing that you did not do the thing that could have impacted our world in the best way that you could possibly have voted? We are in a crisis of many things, including species extinction. I ask you to put aside all politics, any influence that big industry has had. We have been lied to. We have been brainwashed to believe certain things. We cannot continue down this path. I ask you from the deepest of my heart, please immediately move towards an organic system. We are killing ourselves and everyone around us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barankovich. Our next speaker is Chesney Enquist. Chesney, if you could state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
Thank you. My name is Chesney Enquist. I'm a Minneapolis resident. I live on sacred Dakota land. And now is the time to make decisions with unity in mind. And almost certainly, if you're in this room, you might, like me, be a parks enthusiast of one sort or another. And you may know what it feels like spending a day preparing for a public comment and reflecting on years of advocacy work. So today I've been thinking about what we've accomplished as a community and where we're headed, specifically with regards to this awesome journey that we're on to transition our parks to organics. A few of the things that we've collected on the way over the years are thousands of petition signatures, thousands of doors knocked, thousands of phone calls made, city delegates delivered at convention, electoral votes, which brought us commissioners who are willing to listen and collaborate, documented cases of misuse of pesticides in the parks, exposing staff members and children and volunteers. We held a vigil to honor the wildlife lost as a result at the top of Minnehaha Falls. We held a film screening, debuting an international environmental documentarian's film around ground wars and the loss of his father to pesticides as a avid golfer. We brought organic policy experts from around the country with knowledge on how to transition municipal organizations. We brought grants and national funding to help us with that transition process. So the next natural step, after having created this committee who has done this work for a year, is to set a clear and definitive timeline to get this work done and do the right thing today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eckenquist. Our next speaker is Russ Henry. Mr. Henry, if you state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
President Kogel, Commissioners, my name is Russ Henry, and I am a South Minneapolis resident. I'm also the co-chair of the Pesticide Advisory Committee for the Parks. And I got a question for everybody behind me. Who here tonight came to support organic parks? This is a very small sampling of the huge community of people that support a transition to organic. As Chesney just said, we've been doing this work for 6 years now. And a year ago, you asked me to chair the Parks Pesticide Advisory Committee, and it's been an honor to work with the folks on the committee. One thing that the Park Board needs to understand is that due to the formation of the committee, the formation that the Park Board decided upon, we have several people on the committee who are actually pro-pesticide advocates. So these folks back here, they're not waiting around for some committee to make some, recommendations. They're waiting around for the board to make some rules. And the rules they want are for the Park Board to transition to organic, to set a timeline to transition to organic. So several people have introduced a resolution tonight, and I believe that you could honor the work that's gone on. You could honor all of these people and their time, their efforts, and their health by taking a look at that proposal and getting as much out of that as you can and bringing forward a resolution to set a timeline, to ask the Parks Pesticide Advisory Committee to advise you through that timeline for ending pesticide use in parks. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Henry.
I did bring, everybody's talking about soil health, so I brought tonight a soil health handbook for all of the commissioners to take home so you can have a look at what organic soil health looks like.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henry, and you can leave that with Ms. Summers. Our next speaker is Luna Zeidner, if I got that right. Fantastic. Luna, if you could state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
Yes, thank you, President Kogel. Hello, my name is Luna Zeidner. I'm a resident of the Whittier neighborhood, and I serve on the Pesticide Advisory Committee. First off, I'd like to wish all of you a Happy New Year, and congratulate Chair Kogel and Vice Chair Vita on your new positions. I'm also here to talk about pesticides, obviously, and I want to tell you all that I've been working since I moved up here 4 years ago with folks in North Minneapolis who are urban farmers and who don't have a lot to their names and don't have the power of government or even a lot of land, but with what they have, they've managed to manage a lot of land in this city organically. I think that's really impressive, and considering that you folks have a lot more land but a lot more money, I think that it's really about time that you step up and help the community out with this effort that they've been making consciously to manage their land organically. As we've said tonight, there is a proposal now for a resolution to have a transition timeline to organic management. I'm going to submit this tonight, but I've also been sharing it around with a lot of groups that I work with to get more feedback from the community on what we can include in this. And I just want to state that, while we really do need you guys to step up and accept this resolution, I'm happy to work with all of you in this new year. So I look forward to working with you all in 2020, and I will be reaching out to you soon. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Luna. Our Next speaker is Arco Bordello. Arco, if you would come forward and state your name, and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you've got 90 seconds.
Sure, yeah, definitely. My name is Arco Bordello. You can say everybody that knows me as Arco. I stay in South Minneapolis, and I am here today, of course, backing up the movement that we call just getting pesticides out of parks. I think we've heard some great testimony about the physical effects that it has on, not only the land, but also I think we can admit that it's not good for humans either. But I think one of the things that I was thinking about coming from the womb of an immigrant mom and how it affects undocumented communities that already have to live in the shadows. Like, we look at parks as a way to get out, and what pesticides does, it creates a hesitancy, and this hesitancy takes away the ease of the mind of the undocumented person, right? Because not everybody has money to go to the mall, not everybody has money to take their family to the movies, right? So what we do is we use the parks as an outlet. So we take our kids there under the impression that they're safe. It's something that's free that we can do, that we can bond with our family with. So it's something really sacred to us, and you'll also hear some more testimony come from our Native brothers and sisters as well, who I think are more in connection with the planet than I think all of us can put together. But once again, I'm really just here on behalf of marginalized communities everywhere, especially my undocumented folk that can't be here, to give their voice, that already feel like they have to live in the shadows, so we can understand kind of what they deal with and where they're coming from, especially with the political climate the way it is, that we do look at parks as an outlet. And what pesticides do is it creates a hesitancy for my people, and they need this free time off their hands, So thank you guys. Thank you guys everything for the job that you've done, and thanks for the time as well.
Thank you, Mr. Bordello. Our next speaker is Natalia Roybal. Natalia, are you here? Yes. Natalia, if you would state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
Hi, my name's Natalia, 4020 23rd Avenue South, and I'd like to talk about the pesticides. I feel like it's a very danger because, families go to parks for picnics to have fun, and they don't go there to get their kids sick or and cause them danger, and I just feel like the pesticides is making that hard for people to go to the parks and having family time. And I feel like family time is a very good important thing to have, because it's important to have your family and do family things. And a park is wherever you can have a picnic, a barbecue, people have birthdays at parks, and there's just a lot of young children that I feel like could get very sick and stuff by the pesticides. And I just feel like if you guys went and accepted what we were saying, that it would be a very good thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Natalia.
You're welcome.
Our next speaker is Carol Galarza. Carol, if you could state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds to address the board.
Hi, I'm Carol Galarza. I live at 4020 23rd Avenue South. I believe that the pesticides are a definition of a material which are toxic to the biological life, and especially for pets and children. Small pets or any kind of pet. Dogs. A lot of people walk their dogs in the park or take their animals to the park, and I think that could poison them and make them very sick. So I also think that, when people do have picnics, they bring their small children and they put them out there, and they're on the ground and they're crawling through this stuff, and it's bringing it back home, and it could make other people sick also. So with that being said, I hope that this passes, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Also, our next speaker is Carol Whitefeather. Carol, if you could state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds to address the board.
Hi, my name is Carol Whitefeather, live in South Minneapolis. I have grandchildren that are, one's chronic asthma, the other one's cystic fibrosis for the rest of his life. We do bring them to the parks. My main concern, is their health problems. And letting them crawl on the ground, the soil. And I am in support of transitioning to pesticide-free parks. Thank you for listening. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Whitefeather. Our next speaker is Mary Pasco? Do I have that right? All right. Mary, if you could state your name and, if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds to address the board.
Thank you for welcoming us here tonight. I'm in Minneapolis. My name is Mary Pasco. I'm here to ask that the Minnesota Park RB support the resolution on pesticide-free parks and established a timeline. I want to start by saying thank you to the MPRB for establishing a Minneapolis Pesticide Advisory Committee. I think that we should use their wealth of knowledge and their hands-on experience and their history to transition to organic and biological management techniques and eliminate the use of toxins and pesticides in our parks. Thank you for having us here. I am in support of the resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Pasco. Our next speaker is Todd Pasco. Todd, if you would state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds to address the board.
Hello, I'm Todd Pasco. I grew up in Minneapolis around 49th and Portland, and my mom worked at Pearl Park, and I spent many hours there. Thank you for allowing me this quick moment to offer a very different and comedic perspective to you all, because not only was the only class I dropped out of in college public speaking, but I'm completely unprepared. So I'm just going to go on a whim here and say that looking back on my early childhood and the time I spent in the parks at that time, had I been able to travel forward in time to this current day and age and this year and seen the state that humanity is in from a very global perspective, I would be I'm just shocked at the state that we've brought this state of humanity and the state of this earth into in this day and age. And I'm very concerned that we are hitting a very critical tipping point with all sorts of things. And I'll bring that back to the environment because I see environmental issues as one thing that can unite us together across all party lines and different schools of thought, that if we apply some basic reason and logic to how we govern and look at issues, that we would all agree that we are impacting the environment in a very negative way by what we're doing. And let's not make intelligent life out there write us off in the galactic history books as, laugh us off as a stupid race. We have to do something, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Pasco. Our next speaker is Donald Staples. Donald, is Donald here? Donald, if you'd state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
My name is Donald Staples. I stay at 4020 23rd Avenue.
And my name is Josephine Roybal, and I live at 2813 Pillsbury Avenue South in Upton neighborhood. This is my brother, and he's not very speaking person, but yes, we are Leech Lake band members from the Ojibwe tribe, and this is our Mother Earth, and we need to take care of her like she has for us many, many years. And I am totally against the use of pesticides. We need to go organic on this, because without Mother Earth, we are going to have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Staples and Mrs. Roywall. Is there anybody else here to speak this evening? Is there anybody else here to speak for open time this evening? Is there anybody? Yes, come on up and state your name and, if you're comfortable, your address for the record.
I know that lady.
She knows me very well. She's my ex-coworker at North Point Health and Wellness Center. Yeah, I know. Ooh, we're old. My name is Joel Martinez. I'm a Northside resident. I live on 1619 Thomas Avenue North. I'm here for a different issue, actually. I wanted to talk briefly about the Lupit Foundation that currently has a vacant facility for a restaurant or facility for somebody to have a business there. And it comes to my understanding that that facility has been vacant for at least, 6-7 months or so at this point, or at least 5 months. And I know that there is a proposal for a resident that lives not in North Minneapolis or Minneapolis, but lives in Edina, to propose to have their facility there. As a Northside resident, I think it's very important to have that opportunity to present to the North Minneapolis residents or Minneapolis in general. I know there hasn't been a lot of media outlets or presentation on that opportunity, only on the website itself of Lupit Foundation. I have not heard anything about an opportunity to Northside residents. There's a lot of people of color that would like the opportunity. So besides proposing or voting on that today, I think that should be postponed so the Northside residents can know more about the opportunity.
All right. Thank you very much for your testimony. And with that, are there any other speakers? Another speaker, if you come forward and state your name and if you're comfortable, your address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
I'm Penny Fuller. I live in South Minneapolis, so off 42nd. And I'm here also in support of setting that timeline and moving forward rather than discussing, should we, shouldn't we. When it comes to treating our grounds, when it comes to treating our parks, there are a lot of things that mean a lot of things to different people, but nobody wants to think that they're going somewhere and being exposed to things. To me, it's more way past humans because we're so selfish. We want our own happiness. We want everything that we feel we need to have our own lives satisfied, but it takes a lot more energy and it takes a lot more thought and giving to consider everything in the world around us. So this is one big step, but to me it's a really small step because there's a hell of a lot more we need to do for our world right now. But this is an important one, and if we can make at least those decisions and start building on that, we can look at other things that need to be addressed in time as well. But this is a really positive start for our community, and coming from our parks, we all love our parks. And we want to see them be healthy. We want to see our world get better instead of worse and get some more good news going. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. With that, I don't see any other speakers clamoring to come up. With that, we will close our open time, and I will recess the full board and move back to the Recreation Committee. Chair French.
I would like to re-adjourn the Recreation Committee and finish your study report. Thank you for being patient with us tonight.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. I think this is where we were at. Okay, commissioners, I'll start back here. Just in kind of wrapping up, we get a lot of questions about staff ratios. We do a 1 to 15 staff ratio with the staff and the children. Any swimming activities, we do a 1 to 8 ratio, so swimming lessons, field trips, or we take them. We've talked about inclusion already. Another component is training. So our child care workers, which are our certified staff, complete 2% of their work hours annually in training. A lot of that is in child development, mandatory trainings that they need.
We do have trainings that the Minnesota Department of Human Services requires that we complete. Anything from tornado drills and evacuation and what to do in emergencies, CPR, first aid, that kind of stuff. Our program offers recreation-based programming, so we do a lot of stuff in science, and we do swimming lessons. We do a lot of self-directed play. We really want the kids to be able to be creative and do things on their own as well. So we have different choice times where there's staff-led activities, and then we also have times where we want the kids to be imaginative. We do go outside every day, unless it's like -10 or more out there. And we take field trips. We started a new thing last summer where we explore Minneapolis. Instead of getting on the big orange bus all the time, we use the light rail, we use city transportation. We're teaching kids how to use the resources within the city of Minneapolis, and visiting a lot of local businesses that are welcoming us in, like hardware stores and just different places that the kids don't know are right there in their own neighborhood. So with that, we are at an all-time high right now with Rec Plus. We have over 950 kids citywide. On a daily basis, we probably serve 700 children at 18 different sites. And if there's any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Misich.
Thank you, Chair French. Are the fees that are charged by Rec Plus comparable to the fees that are being charged by Minneapolis kids, the MPLS sister program to this one?
Yes, they're pretty comparable. I would say we have, we both have a tier system like I talked about with the starting and ending times. So Amy Fry is the manager of Minneapolis Kids. Her and I meet several times a year. We email, we work a lot together, so we don't like to look at ourselves as being competitive. We like to work ourselves being collaborative, and so we do meet and we try to just serve the city more on that approach. As far as our fees, they're pretty similar. Yeah, and I could certainly get those for you at a later date if you wanted them.
Okay. And then in the past, when the boards received updates on this, we were told that we work closely with Minneapolis Kids to determine where there's a need that isn't being met by either of our programs, to determine where expansion should occur. Is that still part of the conversations that you're having with them on an annual basis?
So Amy and I, does what I do for Minneapolis Kids, we talk a lot about the system as a whole. You know, the sites we've opened recently, Corcoran, when there's been a huge need in the Hiawatha School Park area, and so her and I work together on that. They, like most recently, opened the Kenwood site, so we do talk back and forth on where we need it. This summer, for example, there's a great need in Northeast Minneapolis for another site, so although we just opened Northeast Rec Plus at the new rec center, we are going to have Win the Northeast become year-round, and her and I talk a lot about summer program, school year program. We meet, and we also email and call each other frequently on that. So we do really like to serve the city as a whole, and I mean that wholeheartedly.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that work continues.
Yep.
I'm also interested in understanding what some of the factors are that are contributing to the dearth of sites that are located within Upper South and North Minneapolis. Because when you look at the numbers, most of the sites are located elsewhere, and there's very few sites in those locations. So if you could help me understand what's contributing to that.
To why there's less sites? Is that
yes?
So in Upper South Minneapolis, or?
Upper South and North. When you showed us the list, I don't know if you want to go back a couple slides to that, but there's not a comparable number of sites in those locations versus the other service areas.
Yep. So our sites for school year, I'll start with school year versus summer. So school year sites are based on attendance areas and busing zones. So it's kind of hard to explain without a map, but a magnet school can bus anywhere within an attendance zone versus a community school can bus anywhere within the attendance area, which is much smaller, and anywhere from 2 to like 7 attendance areas make up a zone. So that kind of sounds like a lot of confusion, but it's really based on it. So if I look at Upper South and I look at Brackett and Hiawatha School and Matthews, just for an example, they're serving different schools based on those zones. We do try to get some variances if we have a lot of, if we have like 20 kids and they're calling the school and they're needing busing. I'm trying to think of an example that I could. Northrop School crosses an attendance zone for morning care at Keewaydin because there was such a need for morning care. So if there's like 20 or 30 kids, then that's up to the manager of transportation to do a variance at our request. So a lot of the sites are school year based on busing zones. I don't know if that makes sense, if that's answering your question. So
not really.
Okay.
Chairman, Commissioner Musich, as Margaret mentioned a few minutes ago, the way we get to decision on where a site should be, it really is looking at the entire network of out-of-school time programming across the city. So if you think about North Minneapolis specifically, there's a tremendous amount of programs that exist already. So Beacons exist in many of the North Minneapolis schools. There's the Boys and Girls Club in North Minneapolis, as well as Hospitality House. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't still opportunity for growth in those spaces, but as we've looked at the entire city, we thought about where are the tremendous gaps and how do we support or work collaboratively with Minneapolis kids to fill some of those.
Okay, so there's not a gap that we need to be filling in those locations. There's already a lot of options for families that are being utilized. That's driving why we have so few sites in those locations.
That is partially true. So when you think about some of those other programs, in many ways they don't compare to Rec Plus. So some of them are really just about maintaining kids where they are. None of them really offer the kind of program that Rec Plus offers. The regular field trips, swimming lessons that are all part of your participation fees or whatever we call. So they're not entirely apples to apples. So yes, there are places to send your kids, but if you want some of these other enriching kind of experiences, that doesn't exist equally across the city. So there is opportunity and space for Rec Plus in North Minneapolis.
Okay, so are we considering adding additional sites beyond the one site that we're talking about as the TBD here to ensure that families on the north side and in Upper South have the same access to the types of opportunities that are being offered to residents in other parts of the city?
So we continue to be kind of keep our eyes on where the need is, and so because the TBD site is really going to be new and there's going to be lots of nuance to how we roll this site out in comparison to kind of our standard business with the other sites, there's some learning that needs to happen first before I can say that we want to replicate that model versus offering kind of our standard model. So a short answer is I can't say what an expansion plan might look like in this moment, but we constantly keep our eyes on where the need is.
Okay, and at what point might it behoove us as a committee to revisit this topic to better understand what opportunities there might be for expansion in the future?
I'm sorry, could you
at what
repeat that?
point should we come back to you and ask for an update on this topic again in order to remain up to speed on where we have opportunities for expansion in the future?
So, Commissioner Musich, I think we could be prepared to answer some additional questions. We've got some internal work to do, again, related to the nuances at this unique site, but I think we'd be prepared to answer a few more of those as we get closer to spring.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Any other questions? Yeah, I guess I got couple comments. Just to talk about the Rec Plus program is a very important program to folks who don't have the resources to send their kids around. So you guys are doing a great job. And I guess the question I would have, how can we improve this within our capacity? How do we improve Rec Plus to make it even better than it is right now?
Well, that's a good question. I will say every day we're looking at improvement. We do a lot of feedback from our parents. We get a lot of feedback from our kids. We appreciate feedback from commissioners, staff. We are always looking to improve things that we can improve on. We're always looking for trainings to do more programming, just to make sure we're keeping current with what everything's going on with other programs too.
Is there a demographic breakdown of the kids and families who are participating in the program?
Chair French, we do obviously have both grade and age. We don't collect organizationally race demographic. We've got some gender demographic, but we don't collect race, and so it'd be difficult for us to give you concrete demographic data in that area just because we don't collect it.
What would that, can we figure out how to change that? Is that a staff direction that we'd have to do, or what's the procedure in that? Like, if we wanted to make sure that we start collecting demographic data on this.
So, thank you for that question. Unrelated to this, you will hear a presentation from the Minneapolis Youth Sports Association later in next month, and they will be posing that very question to you. They are questioning how we can serve diverse communities differently or better if we don't really understand who we serve currently. So that's a decision that will lie with this board as to changing our policy.
Good. Okay, and I guess this should be the last one. Special ed, kids with disabilities. How does Rec Plus interact with kids who have different needs?
So we have a therapeutic rec and inclusion coordinator, Sarah Thorson, and so when parents sign up for Rec Plus, they have the option on the enrollment form to fill out a portion that says that they want to request services for our program to provide different needs for their child. And so then they have a meeting with Sarah Thorson, and we have lots of kids with inclusion needs in our program, and we set up various things from inclusion facilitators if they need a one-on-one. We have a lot of reduced ratios, so when I talked about the 1 to 15 ratio, some kids don't necessarily need a one-on-one staff, but we might reduce the ratio to 1 to 8 because we've assessed that we need more staff in the room. We have a lot of different equipment, we have calming boxes, so we serve a lot of kids with different needs, absolutely.
I guess, and you may not be able to answer this question. How do you determine what kid gets a one-on-one? Like, how is that a determination that you guys working with schools to figure if this kid has a one-on-one and during the day, then he or she should probably have one at Rec Plus?
Yep, so Sarah Thorson meets with the parents. A lot of the parents will request the schools to provide their IEP. The parent does have to give permission to the schools to request for us to have that. And then it is really the staff and the parents working together to see what serves. A lot of kids may start out with a one-on-one and then, we phase them out to having a reduced ratio. Or sometimes maybe it'll be the opposite. They'll start out with a reduced ratio and then the staff and Sarah and the parents will assess that they maybe do need a little bit more support. So it could go either way.
Okay, I think those are all the questions I have. I just want to thank you for your wonderful report and all the information that you had. Keep doing the good work. It's a very important job, and the parents of this city who don't have the resources that everybody else has really appreciates this program.
Thank you.
So thank you. With that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the Recreation Committee.
So moved.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All against, say no. All abstentions, we are adjourned.
I'd like to convene the Administration and Finance Committee. Would the Secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Musich.
Present.
Vice President Vita. Present. Commissioner French.
Here.
Vice Chair Hassan.
Here.
Chair Forney.
Here.
You have a quorum.
I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Well, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, December 18th, 2019.
So moved.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I'll abstain. So moved. I think I heard. Okay. So we have, 3 action items. We will begin with somebody moving resolution number.
I'll move Resolution 2019-426, that the board take from the table Resolution 2019-426, a resolution consenting to pursuant to Section 5.2 of the lease agreement with the Lopet Foundation, Mill Valley Kitchen as the subleasee and subtenant of the Lopet Foundation at Theater Worth Regional Park within the Adventure Welcome Center building, the Trailhead.
Great. We are prepared to have a presentation or at least update from Secretary Jennifer Ringel, or Assistant Superintendent in this role, I think. What hat does she have on today?
Chair Forney, Commissioners, I'd like to bring forward to you just a little background information on the action item that you have in front of you tonight. This is Resolution 2019-426. This item appeared on the Admin Finance agenda in December, but was tabled at that meeting and then is coming back to you tonight. This is a sublease with the Lopet Foundation, and Executive Director John Munger is here this evening as well, and I suspect you may have questions for him too as this discussion or this item is considered. So I'd like to start by just setting us in what is the governing documents, what are the pieces that get us to the point of considering a sublease with the Lopet Foundation. So the primary governing document that establishes the ability to have a sublease, or the Lopet to have a sublease, and for us to review and provide consent is actually the lease agreement with the Lopet Foundation. And just a little history on that, the original lease agreement was reviewed and approved by the board in September of 2016. But then in September of 2018, it was amended and reapproved by the board at that time. So there was an additional action taken actually by this board in 2018 regarding the lease agreement. The lease agreement became effective at the same time the building was donated to us. So the effective date is September 12th of 2018. Section 5.2 is what allows for subleasing, and I know it's small text, but I put all of the text of this section up there for you, so my apology if it's difficult to read. But the highlighted part is the part that governs much of what is before you tonight. So the first part of it is that the leasee may sublease parts of the, in this case it's called the Adventure Welcome Center, which is now referred to as the Trailhead, to organizations or tenants as the subleasee may select, whose use is not inconsistent with the purpose and use of the Adventure Welcome Center building as described in the lease. It goes on to say that such subleasees shall be chosen through the request for proposals process that parallels the park board process, and that the park board superintendent or the superintendent's designee shall participate in the selection process to ensure the RFP process meets or exceeds standards of the park board's RFP process. The next piece is that the subtenants shall be locally operated and managed and shall abide by park board policies. And the last part that's highlighted is that all the subleases and subtenants shall be subject to leaser's review and consent, you would be the leaseor, which shall not be unreasonably withheld. So the next part I have is just a little overview of the timeline on how we got here today. So in this particular case, going back to the part that we have to use the park board's RFP process, and that we have to have a representative on the RFP review panel. It's either the superintendent or the superintendent's designee. We have used the RFP process for this similar to what we use in our, say, golf courses or other areas where we have concessions embedded within a larger building, or that it provides a single service within an area that we're providing many services. We began creating and reviewing the RFP, the request for proposal, that is, in early September 2019. Shane Stencil was our representative on this. He has significant experience with this. This is similar to what we had done with the previous process that resulted in the selection of Cajun Twist, and that particular time I was actually the representative on that RFP process. The initial release was on September 13th and it closed on October 4th. The Lopet used the same mailing list we use when we do RFPs, which includes every food license holder in the city of Minneapolis. Now I realize there was an individual here tonight that doesn't seem to line up, so I'll be wanting to have a further conversation with that individual to find out how that didn't connect. There were no proposals submitted on that first proposal, so nothing came in by October 1st. The park board and the Lopet staff then refined the proposal based on the comments that had been received, resubmitted it to that same group, and had a submission date of November 6th, and it closed on November 18th. That produced 2 respondents. Those respondents were interviewed And the Mill City Kitchen was selected to be the one to go forward for negotiations. Sorry, Mill Valley Kitchen. We had asked on December 18th, staff had requested at that point that it be considered at both the committee and at the full board in the same evening. The resolution that is in front of you tonight for consideration has that same request from staff to be considered at both committee and full board, if it's approved at committee. So with that, I just wanted to give you that background, that history on it. I am here to answer any questions you might have. You might have questions specifically for Executive Director Munger as well, and I'm sure he'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions of anybody? Commissioner French?
I guess I have a question about the ownership or the leasing. Where they're located at, who are they, and what kind of, are they here tonight?
That is actually a question, Chair Forney, Commissioner French, that I would invite John Munger to come up and help answer the question on the proposed leasing.
Chair Forney, Commissioner French. We do have Mike and Abby Racken, and then their general manager, Timmy, here tonight.
So who's the actual owner of the business? And what city are you guys located in?
Could we have them approach the...
Yeah.
Could we have them approach the dais?
And your manager too. Let's have full representation here.
All right, what was the question?
I'm just want to know what city do you guys reside in?
We just moved to Minnetonka in the past year. For the previous 17 years, we lived in Minneapolis. Our kids went to school in North Minneapolis, and we resided in South Minneapolis.
What part of Minneapolis?
We were in South Kingfield area, and our kids went to Brightwater for about 5 years.
The only reason I'm asking this is because previously there was a business there that was owned by a minority, and I want to make sure that we are steadily, in the future, making opportunities for minorities to have opportunities in our park system to create business and have generational wealth. So I'm a little concerned about the fact that we're not actively seeking somebody of color or somebody who lives in the city of Minneapolis to take this lease over. So I'm having some real concerns about this. Thanks for answering my questions.
Any other questions? Or?
No, there you go.
Did you have questions?
Jim? Yes, I want to add on. Where are you from?
So my address is 5025 Girard Avenue, North Minneapolis. I am a gay Indian adopted man, so I think we have all those bases covered. So if there was any questions about that, I'm the general manager of Mill Valley. I've worked for this company since 2013. And it disheartens me to hear that, just because the ownership is who they are. If you knew a little bit about our company and all the restaurants that we own one in downtown Minneapolis, we own one in Wayzata, we own one in St. Louis Park. Our company, what was that?
And Rochester.
Our company is so diverse in who we hire, front of the house, back of the house. It's not just about the owners and who the company is owned by. It's about a bigger picture of our 400 employees and their extended families and what we're producing for the community that way. And so that's why I came tonight, because if we're gonna put on, well, who's the owner and where they're living, then that's kind of limiting who we actually are as a company. We have over 400 employees from all over the city, and they have families and kids, and I wouldn't be here backing these people if I didn't believe in the company and the diversity that we actually do have in the people that we employ. It sounds like from this, we've gone through the steps, so I don't know how much more you need to do to pry people to come for these proposals, but that's just, and I am the general manager of the Mill Valley brand, which is going into there, so I'd oversee both properties. So if that's anything for you, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tim. Excuse me, Commissioner Vito, Vice President Vito.
No. I'm just settling into my new title. I shared some of Commissioner French's concerns. I live in the neighborhood. I frequented Cajun Twist. I love the food. I love that there was a woman of color there. But I will say, after I found out that Cajun Twist was no longer going to be there, I had a conversation with the owner of Cajun Twist and also Lopez staff. And the conversations were around what is going to happen, moving forward for a person of color to be in this position again. When I found out that there were only 2 final applicants, and Mill Valley had a person of color that was a general manager, and they employ a lot of people of color, particularly people from underserved neighborhoods, that means as much to me as other things. Like, I want to just put it out there that sometimes people of color are not always in a position to take these opportunities, but the next best thing for me is making sure that people of color are employed in these situations, and that, Timmy just said it himself. He's a gay Indian man who lives in North Minneapolis. That is covering a whole lot of bases. That is like a unicorn, Timmy. See, we're going to have fun. I'll go back there. No. But really, I take this serious. It's important that we do continue to support people of color, especially in business, in our parks. And I appreciate the process. I have been following this. As I said, this restaurant is in my neighborhood. I frequent this place for meetings. I take pride in being able to have somewhere nice to eat in my neighborhood. So I'm comfortable with the process. I'm supportive of this. I am the previous commissioner that sat on admin and finance and brought this forward, and I brought it forward initially because I feel comfortable in the process that took place for us to get to the position we're in.
Thank you. I think Commissioner Hassan? Yes.
I think Commissioner.
Nope, you're next.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Forney. Well, I think it's not only that people of color are not provided opportunity, or not. That's not the case. I think with the case here is that they're not provided with the support that they needed. And I also have a question for John Munger. Can you come into it? What happened to the previous owners of that business, the minority that owned? What happened? Why did they left? Can you explain?
Yeah, as I understand, I'm sorry, Chair Forney, Commissioner Hassan, as I understand it, Tiana, the previous owner, had an opportunity to open her own restaurant in South Minneapolis, and she wanted to pursue that option.
And what will make, what will be the difference between that restaurant and this restaurant? What will make this one successful that the previous owners didn't have?
Chair Forney, Commissioner Hassan, I'm not sure that I would say that Cajun Twist was not successful. I think people enjoyed the food there so much so that she had the opportunity to own a new restaurant.
Okay, well, thank you. Respectfully, I will be voting against this motion. Therefore, I made my decision.
Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you. Like many others, I was disappointed to lose Cajun Twist. It's good to hear that they have found success in South Minneapolis. A few questions. In the lease agreement, it says that subtenants shall be locally operated and managed. Council Rice, can you help us understand what the definition of locally operated and managed means? Like what are the confines of that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Meyer. Well, I think there were several questions asked by Commissioner French of the owners of the company. If we wanted to inquire further, we could, but as I understood, their statement is Mill Valley is a company that was established in what year? 2011. 2011, and it's a Minnesota corporation? And they have offices in, or restaurants in downtown Minneapolis, St. Louis Park, Wayzata, Rochester, 4 restaurants. They have 400 employees. The owners are here tonight. They've said they lived in Minneapolis for a period of time and now live in Minnetonka, and their general manager lives in the city of Minneapolis. The general manager, you're the chief operating officer, Tim?
Director of Operations.
Director of Operations.
Or the Mill Valley.
Mill Valley. I think that you use commonly accepted, the definition of words that are commonly accepted. I would think that it is a locally operated and managed business, based on what they've told you tonight.
Would it be legal for future agreements for us to require specifically that owners of subleases would have to be from the city of Minneapolis? Given things like the Stanek Law, does that apply to this at all?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Meyer, the Stanek Law.
Oh, that's the one that prohibits cities from having requirements that employees have to live within a city. So
Okay.
previously, like firefighters and police, a certain proportion of them had to live in the city, but that's no longer legal.
Correct.
I wasn't sure.
I understand, just wanted to make sure I understood the question. The so-called Stanek Law, or commonly referred to as residency laws, state law prohibits cities from mandating their employees live within the corporate limits of a city or a jurisdiction. That law applies to your full-time employees. It does not apply to contractors. I'm not familiar with any contracting law where the board's attempted to limit its contracts with, say, construction companies or outside vendors to live within the city of Minneapolis. I guess I'd have to explore that question to see if there's any authority to do it. I'm not familiar with any authority that specifically authorizes it did, like the predecessor to the Stanek Law, which was the Jefferson Law. Representative Richard Jefferson carried the law in Minneapolis that said the city could impose residency laws, but that's been repealed. But I think you might want to think about that, because like where you would apply that law. Would it be just in, say, the Lopit contract, or would you apply it generally and have a policy that says we're only going to hire vendors or companies that have their either headquarters or reside in the city of Minneapolis? And obviously, the Park Board hires a number of vendors of a variety of types.
Yeah, well, that was a question that I was going to ask to you, is if we could do that, and I do have interest in going that direction for future contracts. I have a few.
Chair Forney, Commissioner Meyer, maybe just a couple of things to consider on that point is that the previous food vendor was not a Minneapolis resident, and that the facility actually sits within Golden Valley.
Thank you.
So just a couple of pieces as the board would consider something along those lines, understanding that there might be some nuance to it based on our property holdings.
I also have some clarifying questions for Commissioner Hassan. So Commissioner Hassan put a statement out about this earlier today and said that this skips 2 weeks of process for the community to give feedback on this proposal, because staff requested that we move this directly from committee to the board tonight. First, I wanted to know that this did come before the committee on December 18th, but was tabled at that time. But it serves a lot of the function of that, because people had not just 2 but 3 weeks to review this in the meantime. But I just wanted to ask if Commissioner Hassan has a procedural issue, like if you'd be more likely to vote for this 2 weeks from now, if we gave additional time for that, or if you're opposed to it in general.
Well, as we heard from a Northsider that spoke here, I actually want to investigate and find out if the process has been followed.
If the what is
If the process has been followed.
Process.
And also, I think we prioritize some things that are not important in this board, that, including the best set use, that we should be put on top of our agenda.
Okay. So I'm taking that as in 2 weeks you might be more likely to vote for this, is that correct? Or no?
No.
No, you won't?
I will think about it.
Okay. So I have a question for for John Munger and the restaurant owners, respective owners, about how much revenue would you expect to generate in the next 2 weeks, or in a 2-week time delay? Like, how much would 2 weeks matter?
Chair Forney, Commissioner Meyer, it's a hard question. It's been open in January before. We got open last year at the very end of January with Cajun Twist. It's our busiest time at the trailhead by far, so it would be significant. How much revenue? I don't exactly know. 50,000, 40,000, something like that.
I was going to say 50 grand.
Yeah.
Okay. So in 2 weeks. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then my last question is for Council Rice. Are there any legal liabilities that we should be taking into consideration when we vote on this?
Director Ringgold, could you go back to your first or second slide, the one that has the agreement language? I think what the board should focus on, it's up on your screen, 5.2 is important as you consider this, because there's a couple factors. This is a unique agreement. The board does own the land, it does own the building. You have a long-term lease with the Lopet, a 20-year lease that they can renew for 2 consecutive 10-year periods, so it's hopefully a 40-year agreement. Obviously, the purpose of the building is to provide recreational activities, golfing in the summer, trail use in the winter, all the winter sports and things like that. And so just to look at this, the consideration provided by lessor, that's you, the park board, under this agreement is unique to the lessee, that's the Lopet, and therefore the lessee may not transfer, assign, or sublet any interest of the lessee under this lease without the prior written consent of lessor except as provided herein. So the lease does give the board the authority to approve these subleases. That's why they're here tonight. Then the highlighted part, lessee may sublet parts of the AWC building to such organizations or subtenants as the lessee may select, whose use is not inconsistent with the purpose of the use of the AWC building as described in this lease. The lease did contemplate a number of uses, one of which is restaurants. Such subleases shall be chosen through our request for proposal RFP process that parallels the park board's process. To stop at that point, Secretary Ringgold explained that there were actually 2 RFP processes that were engaged on this to find a replacement for Cajun Twist. The first one no applicants were made, a second one found 2. And my understanding from talking with Secretary Ringgold is that they used Shane Sensel as part of the process, and that proposals were solicited to a universe of parties that were interested or potentially would meet criteria that the park board does on other projects. The next sentence is the park board superintendent and superintendent designee shall participate in the selection process to ensure the RFP process meets or exceeds standards of the park board RFP process. I think you heard Secretary Ringgold say that was done. Subtenants shall be locally operated and managed and shall abide by the park board's policies. You'd asked a question about their ownership. I think that's been discussed. And all of lessee's subleases and subtenants shall be subject to lessor's review and consent. You're doing the review process now, which shall not be unreasonably withheld. That's probably the key legal phrase there. What does it mean to unreasonably withhold your consent? There are a couple case law in Minnesota that are address this. The law in Minnesota does give authority to a landlord, which you are, to have say over who basically enters their property. But in order to deny your consent, I would say it can't be unreasonable. Or another way to look at it is, do you have a reasonable basis to not consent? There was two cases, and I'll just put it out there for you to consider. One involved the lease of a where someone wanted to put in they had a building with about 5 units, and there already was a brokerage firm there. The tenant wanted to sublease to another brokerage firm, and the owner of the building said, no, you're not going to do that because that's going to be competition for another tenant. They didn't want to disadvantage a current tenant and potentially hurt that relationship. So you wouldn't put someone in that was either antithetical to the building's use or that violated the purpose of the building. The other one was you'd probably want to look at what was the primary, this lease is kind of unique. It's not just a pure commercial lease and it's about money, it's about purpose. And the purpose of the facility, when they designed it, they included restaurant space, and they spent money to build a kitchen facility and things like that. And my understanding is they do have a kitchen facility there, and funds were expended to put that in. So you'd have to look at what was the purpose of the building, and is this a compatible purpose as you look at that. So as you evaluate this sublease, those would be factors you'd look at. If it's generally consistent with what you intended for the building, it could be viewed as unreasonable not to approve a lease like this. But again, you may want to continue to examine and understand what this business is and how it fits with what the purpose the board has for the LOPIT and its use. I think if you review that and you're satisfied as a group that it fits what you want done there, then that's something for you to consider. That it is a lease, it is a legal agreement between the park board and the LOPIT, and they have come forward, they're going through the process, and they've submitted their proposal for your review.
So can you spell out for us, if we were to vote this down, what would happen next? Like, if we wanted to wait for something that was owned by someone from Minneapolis or a person of color, something like that?
I think it would depend on what the LOPIT thought. I think if if I understand it, the Cajun Twist has been not in the building since October, November. So there hasn't been any, I don't know, maybe you should ask Mr. Munger this, but my understanding is they haven't been doing the restaurant function. This group came forward and is presenting themselves as a potential tenant of the building. It sounds like one of these RFP processes takes at least 6 weeks. Superintendent Ringgold? Assistant Superintendent.
Chair Forney, Council Rice, a lot of it depends on how long it takes to eventually negotiate a contract. So you can move through the RFP process probably in a matter of 4 to 6 weeks, but then you enter into a negotiation process and then the approvals by the Minneapolis Park Board. So, 2 months, 2.5 months is perhaps still conservative, but a little bit
Okay, so probably 3 months maybe if this didn't happen, you'd have to go back to, square one. And in the meantime, the LOPIT could, if they think that consent is being unreasonably withheld, they could litigate. That's how these 3 or 4 cases that I've seen come up. And then the question would be, what is if the board is going to, let me put a finer point on it. I think if the board, we have a unique situation here because our charter requires 6 votes for the board to consent to any lease, including a sublease. My prior opinions on that have been clear. In most of the cases I've seen, there's been a reason articulated about why not to do it. Like one is, okay, we don't want a competitor, one competitor next to another one. That seems to be a theme in several of these cases. Or there is an incompatibility of where one business is, we have a medical arts building and the travel agency wants to come in or a bank wants to come in, then you say, well, no, this is a medical arts building, so we're not going to have a bank in it.
Okay. All right, thank you for all that.
Can we wrap up questions, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I will just say that,
No, I'm sorry. No. There was an open time, and that's when we will be.
I didn't hear the proposal until now.
I'm sorry, sir, but we are in meeting, and I appreciate your comments, but if you could reserve them for our open time, which is time certain at 5:30.
These questions are very important because the way you...
Excuse me, we are in a meeting, so Commissioner Meyer.
thank you. Okay, so I'll
Actually,
do.
I do want...
I apologize. No, it's not within our rules.
Well, no, I think it's... within-
No, I'm sorry, sir. I apologize, but we need to continue with our meeting. We have a meeting going on. I appreciate your being here, and if you'd like to, if you could speak with one of our assistant superintendents, I'd appreciate it. But at this point in time, we need to continue with our discussion here with our board meeting. This is a legal process, and so I appreciate if you would, right, and you did speak earlier, and you will have an opportunity at our next open time. Sir, I apologize, but you will need to sit down now. Sir, you will need to sit down now. Sir, you will need to sit down, please.
Can we give him 1 minute, please?
No, I'm sorry, I apologize, but that is not within our rules. We had an open time, and you spoke at that
I
time.
motion to give him a minute.
I apologize, but no, that is not within our rules.
There's motion on the floor. Commissioner.
We are in the middle of discussion with our board.
Address the board, but also to the foundation.
Thank you for your interest, but at the,
This job posted,
sir, sir, I need to be,
to the major community, because how can you have people of color or people in general to know about
sir,
opportunity?
I will respectfully ask you to sit down.
Chair Forney, I would ask that you ask the parliamentarian whether or not the motion on the floor is in order.
So back to my question.
No, we are in meeting.
No?
We are asking the parliamentarian whether or not this is a motion that is allowed.
Madam Chair, yeah, I have in the past, if the committee wants to hear testimony, they can.
Yes,
That's
but I want to say my...
discretion either of the chair or a motion.
So, like I
So you
was
have a
saying,
motion that you need to consider.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Sir, we are in meeting, and would you please allow us, no, what we are addressing is your concerns. If you'd allow us to move forward, we might be able to make time for you. Okay. As far as the committee, those in favor of allowing the gentleman to speak, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed. Okay, you will be able to be allowed to speak.
For 1 minute.
And we will limit it to 2 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. Again, one of the concerns I have just hearing the ma'am, I forgot your name, explain about the lease and how it's posted. So one of these concerns is when you post certain things, some people might not have access to it. So I understand it was posted to the major outlets where people are caterers or restaurateurs. In Minneapolis, and especially in North Minneapolis, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who cook, who do catering. One is Sammy's Avenue Eatery. There's a lot of people that do catering in Minneapolis. And one of the most important things they're looking for is for restaurant spaces that has a kitchen, has an oven, up-to-date facilities, and that costs money. Like Soul Bowl was in North Minneapolis. They moved to the North Loop because they couldn't find a facility that had those facilities. There's a Somali restaurant in North Minneapolis that just opened. That's renting out the old facility of the Sunnyside Cafe. They're looking for a new place. There's a lot of people that are looking for facilities that has restaurants, that has kitchens, that has hoods and stuff like that up to date. But a lot of those people don't know the information because it's not posted to places where they get the news outlet. They're not posted in KMOJ, they're not posted on the KFAI radio with the Somali restaurants or citizens or Hmong or Latino residents or Northside residents. They're not posted in the news outlets. So how can you say it's fair process when you post it on the major outlets for people who are in the restaurant business? How can somebody who's want to start their own business, who in the cooking or restaurant or cafe, know about those outlets? I've been a Northside resident all my life since 2001. I'm pretty involved. I know electoral stuff, I'm pretty involved in a lot of areas, but to say that I didn't miss this is like something that I never missed. But someone who's really involved in North Minneapolis or just in political aspect, different organizations and foundations, I didn't miss this. Because it's impossible for each person to be connected to everything in every outlet. Okay? So
Thank you, sir.
I think it's very...
Thank you, sir.
It's really bad how this was posted.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, we reconvene our meeting, and Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you. So I think it's valuable feedback from Mr. Martinez. I think there's room for us for improvement for how we reach out to and engage and hopefully find a broader universe of applicants in the future. I also really share other commissioners' concerns and goals, and I hope that we can do more to meet them. For example, maybe it wouldn't just necessarily be limited to Minneapolis residents, but possibly future ones could be limited to people who live in cities within which our parks are located, so the Golden Valley and others. But on the other hand, I also don't want to leave this property vacant for 3 months or longer. That would be about $300,000 in lost revenue. That would be very costly for us to do, and I also don't want to open us up to litigation. If it was just a procedural matter, I would be willing to wait 2 weeks, but from what I'm hearing, it's not just a procedural matter. So given that, I will be voting in favor of this tonight.
I believe Commissioner Muse, Vito.
Thank you, Chair Forney.
I'm sorry.
Deputy Superintendent, this may be a question for the superintendent. Does staff feel comfortable in the process in having someone represented that was a part of this process? How does MPRB staff feel about this process, the proposal? You all had more interaction with this process than I did, so.
Chair Forney, Vice President Vita, as I look at what's required in the lease for the process, we have followed the process. What I'm hearing tonight is that the process we use, which we require LOPIT to use, might not be meeting how you want us to be performing. So I think the question becomes perhaps first, how do we need to change our process? Because they're bound to do what our process is. At this point, for us to change what we are requiring of them means that we first have to change how we are doing it, versus asking them to do something that we aren't currently doing. So your specific question of did they follow the process outlined in the lease, I believe they did. What I'm hearing you say is that you would like our process to get better, which would then cause their process to be different as well.
Right, and I do not want to open us up to litigation. I want to publicly say that. I also want to say that if you're familiar with the LOPIT, you know that this is a critical time. It's more of a winter sport facility than anything. I know there's some concerns that at a time when a major event is coming to Minneapolis, that there's not a business there that some of the commissioners don't want there. But counter to that, there's a huge event coming to North Minneapolis. North Minneapolis is going to be spotlight to the world very soon here. I happen to be one of the commissioners that was privileged to go to Quebec City and have experience with the World Cup, which is coming to North Minneapolis. This is huge. This is a big deal for the community that this restaurant is in. And it's not just about the business. It's about the exposure, the light that is going to be put on this community. And I'm not saying that we can't survive without food, but who wants to? It kind of comes with the territory, right? I'm out at a winter sports event. I want something to eat. I want something to drink. this is on us. If we want to change the process as commissioners and how we move forward with lease agreements, it's our job to do that. But right now, we have a huge event coming. It's winter. We can feel it. It's cold. It's winter outside. This is a winter sporting event. And I mean, we should be supporting this. It's for us to go back and change it later if that's what we want to do. But right now, this is big for us. This is big for our city. We don't all ski or we don't all participate in local activities, but I'm proud of the work that they're doing with young kids that I've sent there. Like, are they going to starve over there? No. But do I want them to eat when they're there? Yes. Like, it's just that simple. This is something that's happening in an underserved community that's going to bring money, that they have been actively working to engage people of color in. I have seen it with my own eyes. I've been a part of the engagement, and I can't help but to support this. This is just one small piece of a huge puzzle that is going to be a good thing for our most underserved community. So that's it for me. Thank you, Commissioner Forney.
Commissioner Musich?
Thank you, Chair Forney. I have a question for Council Rice. With what you've heard at the dais here this evening, do you feel that you would be able to successfully defend the Park Board if we were to be sued for non-compliance with our lease agreement with the Little Bit?
I don't, Madam Chair, Commissioner Musich, I don't generally like to prejudge any lawsuit or claims. I think I'd encourage the commissioners to make sure all their questions are answered and you've explored and understand what all the elements of this lease. If you've got any questions, answer your questions, and then let me defer an answer to that until your deliberations are concluded, or
Okay.
you're closer to
I have
deliberations.
another question for you then. Do you believe that case law precedent would provide us with any sort of defense if we were to not approve this subleasee agreement this evening based on the language currently in the lease?
I think the board would need to articulate a very good reason on, or a reasonable, state a reason why you are not consenting.
Okay.
Or articulate a reason, and then why the consent is being withheld. And if you can articulate that reason, I'll know whether it's reasonable or unreasonable.
Okay, thank you for that
Or a
clarification.
court would look at that. The court would look at it and would want to know
They would want to understand the reason
the
why.
reason.
They would not just be okay with the fact that
No.
5 of us approved it and
It's-
2 did not, or something
It's more
like
than
that.
your kids. If you have a parent and no means no, you're going to mean no because.
Okay. So I intend to support this lease agreement as a frequent visitor to Theodore Wirth Park. You know, I've seen just how many people were thrilled to have a food option at the trailhead. I was really sad to see that we were losing our vendor there. I would really love to see a vendor operating in that space so that people that are there have an option to be able to get food so they can stay longer rather than having to leave the space. It's a beautiful park, and people really enjoy being in it. And I would love for them to be able to eat while they're there so that the Little Bit and the Park Board can continue to be successful in that regard. Thank you.
Commissioner Hassan?
Thank you, Commissioner Forney. It's my understanding, or I'm hearing from people that the RFP was open for less than a month and only sent to a group of select people. I want that to be followed up as well, and my position is reasonable, and I want a community-driven process. And to go back to Chris Meyer's point, we got $0 of the revenue from this agreement, by the way. It's not like we'll receive any money. I just don't want to misinform people that we're receiving $0 from the revenue that's made by the new company.
Deputy Superintendent, can you acknowledge whether or not there is any money that is come forth, that would be coming from this lease agreement? To the
Chair Forney, Commissioners, so This ties to the overall lease agreement that we have with the Lopet Foundation, which establishes an annual rent. I'm going to pull this off of the top of my head. I believe it's $5,000, $6,000 per year, and then a percent of revenue minus expenses. So there isn't a direct relationship, to Commissioner Hassan's point, between the revenue that the restaurant makes in relationship to a specific dollar amount we receive, but as part of the balance of the revenue and expenses that the Lopet Foundation has. So if they have a successful restaurant, the chances of them having a higher revenue over expenses and us receiving a percentage of that increases. And I believe the percent we get on that delta was it 18%? Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, John, would you like to say a couple words?
Yeah, if that's okay. Chair Forney and Commissioners. Yeah, I mean, I think that question in a way kind of, that whole idea kind of misses the point a little bit. Before we started all this, the park board was spending or investing about $600,000 a year in winter recreation, right? You guys still spend some money, but it's not nearly $600,000. In order to make it so that we can generate the revenue to deliver these services on behalf of the park board, we need to have things like the restaurant in place, right? So the fact that the money is not coming directly to the park board doesn't mean that there's not a benefit to the park board in helping deliver the services that we all want to be delivering, if that makes sense.
Put on your light if you'd like to speak.
Go ahead.
Did you want to speak anymore, Commissioner Hassan?
I just have a motion to adjourn, to question. I call a question.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by...
Roll call?
We'll wait for Deputy Secretary.
Secretary Ringgold.
Whatever she is today.
My apology, I had to write in the roll call sheet.
Your mic's
based on the
off.
appointments. Commissioner French.
Pass.
Vice President Vitale.
No.
This is...
I'm sorry, yes.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Vice Chair Hassan.
No.
You made the motion.
Chair Forney.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
No.
You have 3 ayes, 2 nays.
So this was the motion on previous question, right?
No, this
Commissioner Hassan's motion.
No,
Commissioner
this-
Hassan made a motion for previous question.
No.
Which takes a
No,
two-thirds
you
vote.
were calling,
He
no,
made
he
a
was calling
motion
the
to
question.
call the
Which takes a
question.
two-thirds vote. Okay.
Oh, which are you thinking you're taking the roll on?
I need a point of clarification.
This was just in committee, right? This was
Yes,
a
it's
motion
in committee,
for-
it's passed.
Right, but the question is, were you taking the vote on calling the question or taking a vote on?
You can't.
The resolution?
Call question.
Chair Forney, my understanding is that once the question is called, we don't vote on a call the question.
Thank you, okay.
That we were then voting on
the motion.
the resolution, or the motion that was on
Okay.
the table.
So-
And I believe the only motion that was still on the table was the resolution.
So the resolution passes?
Yes.
Thank you. I will take then a motion for the next resolution on our agenda.
I'll move Resolution 2020-104, resolution awarding a construction contract to G Urban Companies, Inc. in the amount of $174,900 for the utility foundation project at Bede, Nebraska, per bid event 690, per per bid event number 697, pending approval by the City of Minneapolis Procurement Division and Civil Rights Department, and authorizing administrative use of a 10% construction contingency up to $17,490 for necessary construction change orders that may arise with the contract, and amending the 2019 capital improvement plan to include $185,557 from the East Calhoun neighborhood portion of the Parkland Dedication Fund.
Any questions we have on this? We can have a presentation, but I don't see any questions on it. So we're missing a member, so I'll wait for a second. But I think we'll just move to all those in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That motion is moved.
I'd like to move Resolution 2020-105, a resolution approving an extension to the sublease agreement and the assignment and assumption agreement between the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board and the City of Minneapolis, both related to the commons being parkland within the Minneapolis Park System.
Does anybody want any presentation on this as well?
No.
I don't see any need for a presentation, it sounds like, so. I believe we need a presentation, sorry. Assistant Superintendent Charter, please.
Chair Forney, thank you and the commissioners for indulging us in this. We would like to substitute a different resolution. In going through this, we have been trying to get things organized for the commons relative to the expiration of an agreement that we assumed from the City of Minneapolis with an organization called Green Minneapolis that has been maintaining the park under our directions since we reassumed the park under a sublease agreement last May. In consultation with Council Rice, we realized that the resolution that you have in front of you and that was originally brought forward in this agenda is not exactly correct, and in order to protect some of the legal things that are going on with the litigation, we reframed this to more closely focus the resolution on an amendment to the operating agreement. Essentially, it's amendment number 3 to the operating agreement with Green Minneapolis, which is a contract that this board holds, and that agreement, that amendment would simply extend the term under which Green Minneapolis would be maintaining and operating the commons until the end of the day on March 31st, 2020. And for that, we would be paying them an amount of $175,000, which amount has already been committed to the park board through an action of the city council. So I apologize for the confusion in this, but we felt it was necessary to bring forward a more correct resolution for the board, for this committee to consider. And Council Rice, I don't know if you would want to further elaborate on that.
Madam Chair, with your consent?
Certainly, I mean, if people are interested, but yes.
Yeah, I think Mr. Schroeder has stated accurately. To be clear, all this is an amendment to the operating agreement. The leases are in place from the city. The agreement with the city that the previous board, or that this board approved, was to continue, you approved this in 2018, was that the sublease with the city remains in effect until the litigation is all resolved. This is just a matter of who will operate the park and how it will get paid for this year, basically. So Mr. Schroeder gets an A on his real estate proposal today.
We're staying till 8 for that.
Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Sure.
So that's the revised resolution that we have in front of us that we are now voting on versus the one that was published.
Thank you. We do have to amend it.
Chair Forney, Commissioner Musich, that's correct, and
Thank you very much.
perhaps I think
so
you
I
have
would like
a
to
copy
make
of it, and
a-
it would actually be useful to read it into the record.
The entire thing?
The
Just-
resolution.
Okay, all right, I would like to make an emotion to amend the item before us to read resolution authorizing the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board to enter into amendment number 3 to an operating agreement related to the commons being parkland within the Minneapolis Park System between the City of Minneapolis and Green Minneapolis as assigned to and assumed by the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board.
Thank you. All those in favor of...
Chair, just quickly for the record, it's the resolution titled ID number 4828.
Thank you.
The commissioners have received.
Okay. All those
Thank you.
in favor of the amended motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That is moved. So now to vote on the full resolution, all those in favor signify, is that correct?
Yeah, because
Thank you.
we amended it, so now we need to vote on the full.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
All those in favor of the amended resolution, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Okay, I will take a motion then to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? We are adjourned.
All right, I will reconvene the general meeting of the full meeting of the Minneapolis
Don't we
Park and
have a
Recreation Board.
planning committee?
We do not. Let me make a note of it. So we did have the planning committee on the agenda. I'm not going to call the meeting because the one item that we had on there was withdrawn by the developer.
Oh, okay.
So-
Thank you for the clarification. I
Really?
appreciate it.
Temporarily, I'm not sure if it's
Okay.
a permanent one, but we have no business to conduct, so I will not be calling the planning committee tonight.
Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it. And now I don't know if we have quorum.
We do not.
Can someone on staff please go into the hallway and get the rest of our colleagues to join us? Someone? Anyone? Thank you.
All right, now that we do have quorum, I'll call back to order the regular meeting of the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. We have, where are we here? Sorry. We have 2 items from the Administration and Finance Committee. Chair Forney.
On behalf of the Administration and Finance Committee, I'd like to move Resolution 2019-426, that the Board take from the table Resolution 2019-426, resolution consenting to pursuant to Section 5.2 of the lease agreement with the Lopet Foundation, Mill Valley Kitchen as the subleasee and the subtenant of the Lopet Foundation at Theodore Worth Regional Park within the Adventure Welcome Center building, the Trailhead.
The resolution has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. Commissioner Musich?
Thank you, President Cogill. Councilor Rice, now that you've heard the debate of this body, have you heard anything that could be construed as a reason why we could refuse this leasee under our current lease agreement without opening ourselves up to legal challenge?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Musich, I've heard there's concerns about the process and the distribution of the proposal, but the agreement with the Lopez says that the process on subleasing, that you'll follow the RFP process that parallels the park board. It is Assistant or Deputy Superintendent Ringgold said that that was followed. It may not be perfect, but it was followed. I mean, the board may want to improve it in the future, but the process that's in place now was followed. Heard Commissioner Meyer asked if it was a locally operated entity. I believe that it is. I think it would help if any of the other commissioners have specific, I think the desire to encourage minority ownership was voiced when this original lease was approved with Cajun Twist.
Yeah.
I think that that's a positive good that the board looks to when it solicits other leases, but I think there's many aspects to that, and I think if it's just on that basis, that could be problematic, and I guess I haven't heard an articulation that that's the reason not to approve it. So I think to answer your question, if there's some great reluctance, it would be, I think it'll be difficult to, I hope we're not in court on it. It's my job, of course, to defend the board on your actions. And I'll do my best.
That sounds to me like we would need to explicitly define why we're declining this if we were to do so in order to be successful in court. So if one of my colleagues would like to take this opportunity to do so, I'd be interested in hearing their rationale.
Thank you, Commissioner Musich. Commissioner French.
Councilor Rice, we're, as a policy and governing board, how often are our votes that we make and resolutions that we pass open to litigation?
Mr. President, Commissioner French, that's a good question about the why of doing it. This board's a bit unique because you are a property owner, and we look for cases on other governmental entities, but there just are not a lot. So that alone might offer some area for litigation. I mean, my job too, and I've told you before, I mean, my job in part is not only to defend you, but try to avoid litigation. I think that's probably part of...
So my big concern is if we looked at litigiousness when deciding on our resolutions and how we should govern our park board, we probably would never ever make a vote. We probably would never pass a resolution if we thought that we would be sued every time we make a vote. So that shouldn't be the reason that we make a vote. We should make a vote on conscience. We should make a vote on how we feel about certain things. So, and no one can go inside and articulate that why I want or why someone doesn't want to vote on a particular issue. So,
and Mr. Chair, Commissioner French, I think you've got that right. You're an elected official. You can exercise your vote as your conscience dictates. The one thing that's a bit different, a little different about this, or something to think about, is we do have this clause in the contract about the board has agreed contractually to not unreasonably withhold its consent in a matter like this. But I think you've stated it well, Commissioner French, about what you do as an elected official. And you'd have to see what happens.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner French. Commissioner Forney.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to ask Deputy Superintendent Ringel, was target marketing utilized in the RFP?
President Kogill and Commissioner Forney, I am not certain if a target market list was used as part of the mailing list. I would have to look into that. So this is a list that we have of the individuals who are licensed within the city of Minneapolis, of the individuals who have expressed interest with us of being a caterer or having some type of a food venue within the system. You may recall that we've recently really expanded the way we do our catering system. So we've gone from 4 or 5 dedicated individuals to over 40 individuals providing catering in the system. So this is the type of resource we would include on our mailing list for this type of a solicitation. It's not one that we would typically go through Target Market on. I can check and see what Target Market has for this type of a category within it. But I can't confirm that all of the vendors who might have been on a Target Market would be in there without further research.
Thank you for the clarification. And I believe that there are some good points that have been brought up about the fact that in the future, how do we have a more robust RFP process? What I'm hearing is that the LOPIT did their due diligence. They followed the letter of the law or the contract that we have with them in seeking a tenant for this space. So I believe, though, that in the future, there are possibly other things. And I commend staff for always looking for new and different ways to expand our outreach to the community and make sure that we do, such as our target marketing, encourage and support minority-owned businesses. But the LOPIT has done its due diligence. And I think that's a really important thing for us to keep remembering. I want to remind that every member of this board voted for this lease with the LOPIT. And all these terms and conditions were at that point there. We didn't make any distinction of whether or not we want specifically and only and absolutely minority. We did not ask that of them. Certainly it is our aspiration, certainly it is something we would all like to, we encourage, okay? But that is not what was in the lease, and we all voted on this. So here they have done their due diligence. The other thing I think we need to really point out is the fact that the LOPIT is a very, very significant partner in this park system. And I'm going to use one analogy that I hope that you can resonate with. Ukraine is a partner of the United States. We want them to succeed. And the phraseology, not unreasonably withhold, I think is what we need to be making sure that we are not unreasonably withholding. We know on the national scene that that is a scandal. I don't want us to be exposed to a scandal because these people have done their due diligence, and it is very, very important for us to make sure that they are successful. Because if they aren't successful, if we lose the LOPIT for some financial reason and everything, it is a detriment to this park system. Maybe we won't be getting directly money from Mill Valley, but we will be getting directly from the LOPIT. So we financially benefit, and as John very articulately indicated, they have taken a significant amount of programming off of our ledgers. So it is very important for us to be a supportive partner to them. I applaud Mr. Munger and his group for bringing, really, it sounds like homegrown people, a unicorn. Yahoo! And so I am just delighted that, you have brought forth, a group that I've been to Mill Valley Kitchen, and I think it's a marvelous restaurant. So I look forward, and I think that it is so important for us to realize this is the season for the LOPIT to be successful in the winter, and for us to unduly withhold would be a detriment to the park system at this point in time. To have that place vacant for another few months is a real detriment. And we might be facing some liabilities as a result. But they have already done their due diligence, and I do not see any reason why we should be withholding consent. So I would like to move forward, and I support this agreement.
Thank you, Commissioner Forney. Seeing no other lights, I just say a few things. I want our partners to be successful, and I want our parks to be activated and spaces that people want to be in, and food happens to be a big part of creating those sorts of spaces. I also would say that every member of this board, I would hope, is subscribed to our listservs, and I would hope be aware of the fact that in September this RFP went out to every registered person who has a food license in the city of Minneapolis. Now, certainly that is not enough for us to do. In the long term, there needs to be resources put towards developing businesses by people of color and underserved folks so that they can be successful in our park system. That should not, however, be an unfunded mandate to the staff of our board when they are trying to make sure that we have active parks that are serving the community. It's unfortunate that we may not have the 6 votes that are needed this evening for this lease. We do have a few folks that are not here tonight, but I, at this point, think that it would be a good idea, though it is a detriment to our detriment to our partners, that I move to table this resolution.
Second.
All those in favor of tabling the resolution?
Roll call.
All right. Secretary Reynolds, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Musich.
Pass.
Commissioner Meyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan.
Yes.
Commissioner French.
No.
Commissioner Forney.
Aye.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
President Cogill.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan.
No.
You have 5 ayes, 2 nays, and 2 absent.
Thank you, Secretary Ringgold. With that, I'll give it back to Chair Forney.
Oh, yes, sorry. On behalf of the Admin and Finance Committee, I'd like to move Resolution 2020-106, a resolution awarding a construction contract to G Urban Companies, Inc. in the amount of $174,900 for the utility fountain project at Bede-Makaska per bid event number 697, pending approval by City of Minneapolis Procurement Division and Civil Rights Department, and authorizing administrative use of a 10% construction contingency up to $17,490 for necessary construction change orders that may arise with the contract, and amending the 2019 capital improvement plan to include $185,557 from the East Calhoun neighborhood portion of the Parkland Dedication Fund.
The resolution has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Resolution has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions from any commissioners? Seeing none, I do want to say that I am excited to see this moving forward at the site that where we need this very much so after the tragedy there last year. So looking forward to supporting it. All those in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, so moved. Moving on to petitions and communications, Commissioner Hassan. Thank you, Commissioner Hassan. Commissioner French.
Oh, I'm sorry, I guess I don't have to do that. I guess tonight we had about, I think I counted about maybe 25 people or so who came and talked about us creating a timeline for us to get pesticides out of our parks. I might have said something a couple meetings ago where I suggested that we should probably have a timeline. My theory behind this is, just like the last question that we just had a lot of debate over, I'm worried about opening us up for litigation and being sued by folks 5-10 years down the line if we find out that some of this stuff is bad for you. So I would encourage some of my commissioners to really think about the pesticide timeline. And that's it. That's what I wanted to use my time for.
Thank you, Commissioner French. Commissioner Meyer.
Pass.
Commissioner Forney.
Pass.
Vice President
Yeah. No. I am excited about this next upcoming year. I'm excited to serve as the new Vice President of the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board alongside President Cogill and my fellow commissioners. This is an exciting time for us. I am also happy to be working towards pesticide-free parks, and I really want to work with the committee that we formed to work on this. I did see a lot of people here tonight speaking on behalf of the timeline, but I also am concerned that some of the other committee members who were appointed were not a part of the discussion that we had. Tonight, we recently had a presentation by the two co-chairs, and I thought we were at a place of compromise. So it would be, I would be interested in speaking to the entire pesticide committee on what they've come up with, their thoughts, because that is the charge that we led for them, was to direct us on how we move towards pesticide-free parks. I'm not sure if we need to have another presentation again, but I would just like to have a better conversation with the group of people that we asked to spend their time for free to work on this issue. I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Vice President Vitaw. Thank you, everybody, for taking me through my first meeting and supporting me in this role. I hope to be more efficient and eloquent as the meetings roll on, but I appreciate everybody's patience. I just also want to say, though everybody has left, that the folks who were here around the pesticide issue, I appreciate the passion, I appreciate the call to action, and I appreciate Commissioner French's desires to establish a timeline. I think that is the thing, that a timeline to a clear list of alternatives is the thing that needs to be reviewed by the committee that's been set up to do this, and that they need to come back to the board, given the depth of knowledge that they have now developed on this issue over the past year with their evaluation of that possibility. And so I look forward to working with all of my fellow commissioners and the Operations and Environment Committee to making something along those lines happen quickly. And with that, I will, Commissioner Musich, you did not have an opportunity to speak. Do you have anything to say?
Thank you. I'll just be brief. I too heard from a number of members of the Pesticide Advisory Committee after our last presentation, mostly in dismay that a number of things were brought forward as coming from them that they had never actually even discussed as a committee. So I too would like to have a better understanding of what the committee as a whole is really looking for in terms of guidance from the board before we move forward with any sorts of changes in guidance or new resolutions around their work. So I will be having those conversations in the coming weeks to ensure that I'm well informed as the chair of the Operations and Environment Committee, so that we can then as a body have that discussion and find a way forward that meets not only the needs of guidance of that committee, but also my fellow commissioners. I'm still recovering from pneumonia, so I apologize to everyone for my voice and the coughing. It's a long recovery, and I hope none of you ever have to experience it because it's super no fun. But yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Musich. With that, I would take a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.
Yay, look at you.